the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to a Meatloaf Monday. It's Monday all day long, y'all, but there's Meatloaf. Play it.
I think I'll try the meatloaf sandwich.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, meatloaf.
What is it? I'm only asking in case I have to describe it later to a doctor.
Look, it's nutritious. It's delicious.
Made out of meat. Add ketchup if you want. I couldn't care less.
Meatloaf Monday, all day long, y'all. And JP's in the house, fresh back from a long trip and sniffing with a cold over there.
I go to Pennsylvania to see my family over the weekend, and I guess I got the Pennsylvania cold or something.
It's that Pennsylvania crud, man.
I guess the Yankees got stuff up there that we don't. But other than that, it was great. Yeah,
good
happy
deal.
to be back.
That was very cool. You were up there honoring your grandfather.
Yeah, he was getting a distinguished alumni for his high school that he attended up in Pennsylvania. It was pretty cool. Got to meet a bunch of his old classmates, and apparently his first girlfriend in middle school that she made sure to let me know that he stood her up at a dance, but that she forgave him. So it was fun.
Awesome. Well, good. Glad you're back. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you today. Coming up top of the hour at beginning of hour number 2, we'll have Jay Town, former U.S. attorney, on the air with us talking about the issue of whether or not there's going to be state or federal charges against the shooter of Charlie Kirk. So we'll have Jay Town on there talking about that and giving us the breakdown of where that's headed. And then there's a whole triple dipper just filled up with stuff. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right. The Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, we're going to talk about the turning point aftermath. So what's going on in the wake of the shooting of Charlie Kirk? And I looked at this morning, I thought, okay, do I go another round on the show? And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to dedicate the entire show to it. But you know what? I will if the audience wants to. How about that? I've got 3 dippers, but the first one is the turning point aftermath. And we're going to talk about some of the things that have been happening in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder last week. Who's being fired? What's being said? Are we going to see any changes? What's the investigation showing? We're going to talk about all those things and give you the latest updates. That's number 1, Triple Dipper, the turning point aftermath. And then number 2, we're going to cook up a batch of home fries. Yes, we are, because every once in a while you got to pay attention to what's happening in your own backyard and going on in and around and amongst you. So we're going to talk about a batch of home fries, stories from Alabama and Tennessee on number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, military minded. Y'all, there's some latest news out there about things that are what I would consider to be deeply involving U.S. military or defense contractor efforts. Let's talk about military minded stuff. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, I'm going to jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. I'll remind you guys, as always, that attorney Stan McDonald, attorney for over 30 years in North Alabama, longtime conservative, and the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way. I'll tell you more about Stan here momentarily. Okay, let me just say there's been a flurry of news over the past few days about the killing of Charlie Kirk, and it has left an indelible mark on our society. It really has. Since the time of the shooting, I've come to see and hear numerous clips of Charlie speaking and addressing crowds and appearing on podcasts. And there have been any number of people that I respect, and even some that I don't, that have made known how he impacted their lives. But there were 2 instances that really got me. One was a video I saw early this morning of Charlie on a podcast with liberal commentator Mark Halperin. Mark Halperin, liberal. Now, I will say that while Halperin and I don't agree on much on policy and politics, that he has been known to be one of those reasonably unreasonable people who can agree to disagree. In other words, you can have a dialogue with the guy. In the interview with Charlie, I was first struck by how gracious Charlie was. He didn't seem to care that he was on a podcast with a guy that differed from him, and the clip that I saw took a step further as he was asked by Halperin how he felt about the fact that the cartoon show South Park had recently spoofed him. And Charlie's response in that podcast was priceless. He said he thought it was actually hilarious, and that as a kid watching South Park, he never dreamed he'd be on it. So listen, y'all, that's a man who's comfortable in his own skin right there. People were saying things about him, even kind of lampooning him or mocking him, and he thought it was hilarious. The other instance that caught my attention was just the other day when, in the wake of his death, an online influencer, a black man named Damani Felder took issue with liberals claiming that Kirk's a racist. And in his post, he said, "I know that Charlie's not a racist, and I'm the proof." He talked about the fact that he was between jobs. He had no money, but he was posting his conservative views as a black man in America on his social media with very few followers. And one day, Charlie Kirk sent him a 3-word message, and all it said was, "You are terrific." He said that Kirk reached out to him personally and offered to pay his way to the Black Leadership Summit that Charlie Kirk's TPUSA was putting on. Let that sink in. Charlie Kirk, the one they call racist, was hosting a Black Leadership Summit. Go figure. He's also reaching out to this guy and offering him a scholarship. So he went, and it rocketed him to influential ability that he had never had before, with hundreds of thousands of followers now on social media. You see, here's the bottom line. The left will do all it can to destroy your good name. I've experienced that firsthand. If they can't stop you, they'll smear you, try to destroy the very essence of who you are and not just what you've done. It's true. They do it all the time. I recently read an article about Deion Sanders. Neon Deion, the former great two-sport athlete who now coaches the Colorado Buffaloes football team. One of his star players was a guy named Travis Hunter. This is a couple of years ago. He was on the injury list, but a big game against USC was coming up, and it would have meant a lot to the coach to have all his best players on the field, you can imagine. Well, Hunter had suffered a lacerated liver after a major hit in the Colorado State game, but he was doing better, and Travis Hunter is a true two-way player himself. He had been starting at both receiver and cornerback, so his presence had already been missed. So Travis Hunter allegedly sent a text to Deion Sanders, his coach, and said, "I need to play this week. We need to get everything we can on the field. I'm not taking no for an answer." Okay, bold words, right? Coach could use him, no doubt. But Coach Deion Sanders texted his young man back and said, "No, you ain't ready, and I care about you more than I care about this game." And he went on to say, "You're going to change the game of football one day when you're healthy and ready, and your future's brighter than mine ever was. So relax and get healthy. I love you, son." Now, that's a coach who has his priorities in order. Say what you want about Deion Sanders, but I love that story. Look, he knew the value of the long term versus the short term. He knew what it meant to develop the person. And in doing so, I'd say that Coach Sanders also gained the respect of his players. He gained a good name. We're told in Proverbs that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. A good name. When it comes down to it, that's really all you got. The old saying goes, you can't take it with you, referring to your earthly riches. I mean, you can certainly leave your money and your possessions to your heirs, but the best thing you can leave them is your legacy. You can leave them your good name. But to do that, though, you got to have your priorities in order. You can't have a good name if your priorities are out of whack. Let me tell you another story about a famous athlete who apparently had his priorities all in the right place, and he was known for it. Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones was one of the greatest golfers that ever lived, apparently. He helped design the Augusta National Golf Club. He co-founded the Masters Tournament. He was the most successful amateur to ever compete at the national and international level. During the 1920s, he dominated every amateur competition. He regularly beat some of the most famous professionals of his day. He decided to stay in the amateur ranks because he was an attorney by trade with degrees from Georgia Tech and Harvard and Emory. He also authored 4 books. He studied French, German, and Latin. He won his first golf tournament at the age of 6. He won the Georgia State Amateur Championship at 14. Over time, he won the U.S. Amateur Open 5 times, the U.S. Open 4 times, and the PGA Championship and the Masters. In 1930, he won the Grand Slam of golf by winning the U.S. Amateur Open, the U.S. Open, and the British Amateur and British Open all in 1 year. He was eventually inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame, but at 28 years old, 28, he decided to retire from competitive golf. He'd done all that by 28. Just like that, he was done. He felt it was necessary to prioritize his family and his law career. But when World War II broke out, though, Bobby Jones also entered the service and he became an intelligence officer for the Army Air Corps. Senior leadership actually asked him to play exhibition golf in the U.S. as part of the war effort, but Jones insisted on going overseas. And on June 7th, 1944, Bobby Jones went ashore on day 2 of the Normandy landings, and he spent time on the front lines interrogating German prisoners because he was fluent in German. He came out of the war with the rank of lieutenant colonel. But there's one story about Bobby Jones that really got me. Because as good as he was of a golfer, a lawyer, a war veteran, a family man, it's also said that he was an even better person. He was known as a man of integrity. And it was never more apparent than during his time at the 1925 U.S. Open. You see, Jones lost the 1925 U.S. Open in a grueling 36-hole playoff after calling a one-stroke penalty on himself over the protests of rules officials. In one of the final holes, he was addressing his ball, which lay slightly in the rough, and he noticed that the ball moved slightly while his iron was grazing the grass. Now, look, I'm not a golfer, but I understand that's an automatic penalty. When he informed the officials, they all told him they hadn't seen the ball move. His caddy hadn't seen the ball move. Even his opponent said he had not seen the ball move. No one in the gallery had seen the ball move. But Jones insisted he saw the ball move, and so he charged himself with a one-stroke penalty. And he lost the 1925 U.S. Open by one stroke. The officials actually tried to argue him out of it. I read that when the tournament officials tried to compliment him on his integrity, he scoffed at them and said, "You might as well praise me for not breaking into banks. There's only one way to play this game." Bobby Jones played by the rules, period. It was his name on the line. His name was on the line. Sports writer Herbert Wind back in the day said, in the opinion of many people, of all the great athletes, Bobby Jones came the closest to being what we call a great man. He had all those accolades, but what he was known for was being a great man. He had a good name. Look, we live in a culture right now that too often celebrates talent over integrity. But that's backwards. Talent's fleeting. You can be the best today, but age and infirmity catches up to everyone eventually. You can be the best looking, the strongest, the smartest, the richest, the most well-known. You can still be a hollow shell if you don't have all your priorities in order. If you don't work to maintain your integrity, if you don't work to have a good name, integrity is the one thing that does not depreciate, but it can be lost. You can spend a lifetime building your good name and you can lose it all in one fleeting second. Nothing takes longer to build than a good reputation. Nothing can be destroyed as quickly. In 1948, by the way, Bobby Jones was diagnosed with a rare disease called syringomyelia. It involves like a fluid-filled cavity in the spine. It causes crippling pain and eventually paralysis. He became wheelchair-bound. He died in 1971. But he was not prone to complain. When he was asked once about his ability to handle his disease, Jones reverted back to his love of golf, and he said, "Golf's the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots, you get good breaks from bad shots, but you have to play the ball as it lies." I would say that Bobby Jones did not suddenly become able to make that statement. He had built that good name over the course of his whole life. Coach Deion Sanders, he knew to put his priorities in order, take care of his players. Bobby Jones knew when to walk away from his fame and success to focus on things that were more important. Better to have a good name than great riches, right? And in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's shooting, I would say that what we're learning more and more is that's exactly what Charlie Kirk did. Better to have a good name and to keep it. Better to have a reputation than a bank account. Better to have integrity with nothing other than, honor, right? It's better overall to have the good name. Charlie Kirk had a very good name. And that's why the left is now intent on destroying not just what he stood for but also what he did, but they're also content to destroy his actual name. And we're not going to let that happen. Not for a second. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, this morning on social media, I posted that in Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, which is what the left still goes by, Rule 5 actually says ridicule is one of the greatest tools. And Rule 13 actually says find the target, fix it, polarize it. And that's what they do. If they can't overcome what you say and do, they'll just try to destroy the name. And I'm telling you, having a good name, better than great riches. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, we just recorded an amazing podcast with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson, who now hunts down human traffickers. He's also got a personal story that involves a lot of overcoming and a ton of faith. So listen, I can't encourage you enough. Go ahead and sit down. Make yourself ready for the Just Right podcast. In this case, with Jared Hudson. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Jared Hudson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
I'm glad to have you and appreciate you making time. So I'm going to do sort of an intro so folks know exactly who I've got sitting across the table from me right now. But so you're born and raised here in Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, born in Lynchburg, Virginia, and when I was about 4 or 5, we moved here. So, but yeah, pretty much born and raised.
So you're a
here.
Carpetbagger. You came down from up north.
Came down from up north. Came down from just below the Mason-Dixon line now. So still technically the South.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Bottom line though, grew up to become a Navy SEAL. That was your career. Team 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Sniper qualified.
Yep, sniper.
You're also APO certified, Alabama,
Alabama
Police Officer Standards.
yeah.
Certified law enforcement officer.
Yep.
Spent time in law enforcement. Even ran for sheriff of the largest county in the state of Alabama, Jefferson County.
I was the sheriff runner-up, is what I like to say, because it
You
makes
were-
me feel better.
You were actually the Republican choice. How about that?
There you go. How about that?
And I'll be honest with you too. We'll talk about that more later. But as a longtime member of the Republican Party and a former elected official myself, I watched your race, and you were in a blue county running a red race, and you took him to the wire. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, about 1%. And I lost by about 1.5%, I think, is what it came down to.
It was way close, and I think he was scared.
Yeah.
And he should have been. All right, there's that. You ran for sheriff. You love the Lord. You make no bones about it.
Only thing that matters.
Perfect. Which also leads me to, you got a beautiful wife and 3 daughters.
I do, yep.
And I think those 2 are the crowning pieces of your resume.
They are, so I've got the wife, the 3 girls, and, obviously my faith first and foremost, even above them. Jesus says, if you don't hate your family, then you don't have a love for me. It doesn't mean that I actually hate my family, because I'm called to draw them to Christ, but my love for him even supersedes my love for them, and my love for them is unbelievably great. I'd burn the world down for those girls, and so that's how I feel. So imagine what I do for Jesus, if that makes sense.
And you're trained to burn the world down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't mess with my daughters, because I'm gonna die trying.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
You now run, having spent time in the teams, you're out civilian world. You now run 2 companies, the Shooting Institute and Covenant Rescue Group.
Yep.
And we'll get into both of those in a minute. But I think suffice to say, your previous resume has translated well into what you're doing in the civilian world.
It has, yeah. The time in the SEAL teams is what prepared me, but also gave me, it's like the little bit of bait on the hook. And you still have to set the hook, but that's what gets people interested in who I am. Because SEAL, I'm just a regular dude like anybody else, but SEAL is a thing that people look at and they're like, wow. Like, you hear doctor, you hear lawyer, you hear politician, congressman, senator. Those things carry some weight because it takes something to get there, and I think that's what SEAL has done for me.
I think that's fair to say, and I think there's never going to be a time in your life, I'm of the mind, that God doesn't plant something in your life with purpose beyond what you might have imagined it.
100%, man. 100%.
You also, apparently, like every other SEAL, you wrote a book.
Yeah, that's right. Now, all my other SEAL buddies say, "I didn't write a book, bro. You wrote a pamphlet." It's only like 50 pages long. But yeah,
it works. It publishes.
Yeah, that's right.
And you also, by the way, right here with Rightside, you're one of our podcasters.
Yeah,
you got the Liberty Minute podcast, comes out every other week for the most part. Yeah.
I told a guy told me, he said, "Oh man, you're that guy on the Liberty Minute with Phil Williams." I said, "Yeah, man, my name's Jared. Nice to meet you." Go, "I know exactly who you are. I got one question though. Why do you call it the Liberty Minute? Because it's like 13 to 17 minutes every time." And I said, "Look, it's just a name, bro.
It's a euphemism,
yeah,
man.
It's just a name." So I thought it was pretty good, though.
All right, cool resume. Let me ask you this. You got a beautiful family, amazing military record. You live large. How and I'm going to start off, I'm going to get philosophical right off the bat. So having said all that, those things, like on paper, I see it all. But how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing that you should be remembered as is who are you in the person of Jesus Christ, because that's the only thing that lasts, right? Now, if I die right now, I'm going to be attached. I'm going to have a lasting impact, even in my death, on my wife and my girls. Possibly some of the people in my sphere of influence, possibly some of the guys in the SEAL teams I work with or in business or whatever. I might have a lasting impact. But oftentimes that lasting impact is not so much... It's not so much who you are here physically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I really believe it's who you are in the person of Jesus Christ, because they look at it and say, "Man, that guy really was who he believed in." Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's and I believe it's in James. He talks about, "I'll show you my faith through my works." That's not a works-based salvation.
Right.
He's not.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right. So I got to tell you, the Monologue Daily brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald. Yes, indeed. Stan McDonald, been a partner at the law firm at Wilmer & Lee for a while now. He's also a 30-year veteran overall in the practice of law. And I got to tell you, Stan McDonald not only is a good lawyer, but y'all, The dude has been in the trenches, in the mix, in the fray for years on all the things that right side ruffians care about the most, all the policies and the politics for conservatives. All that to say, yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, not just a conservative, but also a good lawyer, has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald is on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries, though, would have no greater foe. So the bottom line is this. You need an attorney in North Alabama? Shoot. Stan McDonald, y'all. I'm going to give you his phone number. Are you ready? The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. Stan McDonald. The number is 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. There you have it. In no representation made, the quality legal services are bad. They're not. They're not bad at all. They're good. I like it. All right. I gotta take a brief moment of personal privilege. How long do I have? A couple minutes, I hope.
Got 2 minutes.
Yay. All right. So this past weekend had a very cool thing happen. So one of our listeners, I'm going to say her whole name. I usually just use first names, but Kim Hamby. Kim Hamby, unbeknownst to me, had earlier in the year had nominated me for an organization called Quilts of Valor. I'm so blown away by this, so honored by it. Quilts of Valor is a national organization with local chapters where if someone applies for your benefit because of your military service, usually it's wartime service, but I think they're moving more and more just to military service in general. They will, if you're approved, then the local ladies will actually make you a handmade quilt. I am holding right now in my hands. It's folded, so I can't get the whole thing out of the studio. But this past weekend, the ladies from Quilts of Valor in Huntsville, Kim Hamby being one of them, Kim Hamby made this quilt for me, and then they awarded it to me in a ceremony. This is one of the coolest things I've ever been given. I've gotten some cool stuff, some plaques and things, a ribbon on my uniform or whatever else. I've never had somebody spend the time to hand make for me something like this as a honorary. That was just blowing me away.
That's very cool.
It's very cool. I was asked what I was going to do with it. Are you going to use it for decoration? Shoot, I'm probably going to lay on my couch and watch TV with it on Sunday afternoons. I mean,
that's the way to do it. That's the best way to honor
it. So anyway, if any of y'all are listening, Quilts of Valor is a very cool organization. And Kim, thank you so much. April, who's the head of the local chapter. But Kim, thank you so much. It blessed Charlene and I like you have no idea. And I brought it to the studio today to show on the live stream. So thank you very much. Wow, the music didn't play. I got it all out. That was good.
We got 5 seconds to spare. So
okay.
There you
go. 4, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. We'll dive right on into Dipper number 1, the turning point aftermath. I'll catch up on text line, which is already going. You guys text it on in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
And then I'm working my way to heaven. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, and that's going to get me to heaven. No, he's just saying, I have faith and I believe in Jesus, and because of that, you're going to see my fruits. My fruits are going to show that I believe in Jesus. Now, there's another aspect of that without getting too far off on this topic. You hear a lot of people say, oh, I let people see who Jesus is through how I live my life, right? That's what, I don't necessarily tell everybody about Jesus, but they get to see who Jesus is through how I live my life. Well, that's not good either, because Paul says, how will they hear if they don't have a preacher to preach? So there's 2 aspects to that. There's one, what I say, right? Scripture says a freshwater spring doesn't produce salt water. What I say is unbelievably important. But then once I say it, it's my actions that back it up. It's words, then action. And we see that with God. John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, right? Wasn't in the beginning was the action, was the creation. No, in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God. And then all was made through Him and by Him, and without Him, nothing was made. We see that in John chapter 1. First was the Word, what He spoke, what we speak. Then second is the actions that back up what we speak. And ultimately see in John chapter 4 or John chapter 1 verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among men, right? And we see that in Isaiah. He says, I was amazed. God was amazed that there was none who could stand before Him. He's talking about when He was drawing the plan to create the world. None could intercede for man, so He said, I'll take up my own strong arm of salvation. So God says, I'm going to make a world where sin is possible, I'm not going to make them sin, but I'm going to give them the option. And guess what? I know they're going to choose sin. And there's none that are going to be able to stand before him, but I'm going to make a way out of sin, and it's going to be through me. That's what God says, and that's who we should be.
That's
so
1
the lasting
10:13.
That's right. So that's a lasting impact. The lasting impact is when I die, when I'm gone, when anybody looks, was Jared Hudson, was his actions, how he raised his kids, the husband he was to his wife, how he was to his friends, the guys he went to war with, the guys that he worked with here, stateside law enforcement. Did his actions match the words that he said? And those are the two important things. So when I'm remembered, I want to be remembered as a guy whose actions matched my words, because ultimately that should, as a Christian, that should give not honor and glory to me, that gives honor and glory to God. That guy really was who he believed in.
I think that's awesome. And let me ask you this, because I'm going to chase a rabbit for a minute. I just heard probably 5 times in the last couple of minutes you quoting scripture. So, like me
loosely quoting scripture.
Okay, it wasn't too awful of a paraphrase, but most of it was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And also when you said that, it would click verses in my mind. I think I responded back a minute ago, 1 Corinthians 10:13.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in memorizing scripture. My personal, I call it my life verse, is Joshua 1:8-9. And it says, "This book of the law shall not depart from you. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may do what is written in it, and by this achieve prosperity and success." So let me ask you this. Is the memorization of scripture something that's happened just because it was ingrained over time, or do you have a deliberate attempt on a regular basis to put it to memory?
Man, I just read it, if I'm being honest.
It just sticks?
Yeah, just read it. What'd you say?
Does it just stick? I mean, when you read it, does it stay?
stick? Yeah,
or do you intentionally try to memorize it?
No, I don't intentionally try to memorize it. It's just I think it's just the natural outcome of reading the word. You can, and when I was a kid, we did Awanas. I think it was
yeah.
with my dad. Yes, we did Awanas. Not
been
far from
raised
here.
Baptist.
Rainbow City First Baptist, right up the road here. And so we would memorize verses as a kid that would stick. And having a dad that was a pastor, my parents they never forced us to do anything, but we would read scripture, and we'd read it as a family. And I think all my brothers and sisters do the same thing. We spend time in our Bible. It's a part of our life because it was ingrained into us at a young age.
Yeah.
Proverbs says, train up a child in the way they'll go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And so I think there's an aspect of that to whoever I see it with my daughters, with my girls. We'll do memory verses, and we'll read stories, and we'll do Bible stories at night before they go to bed. So I do believe that's important. However,
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show. I mean, goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to... I lost my train of thought. I looked over and saw a Charlie Kirk video again and read what it said right as I was in the middle of talking.
I think we need to turn all your screens off.
I do.
At the
That's like
beginning
the
of every
4th time
segment.
I've done that. Okay, you know what the bottom line is? No matter where you hear this show, we love you. We appreciate it. And it means the world to us. Podcasting, live stream, radio, all of it. Thank you very much. Okay, I got through.
That's good enough right there.
That's just proof it's a live show, man.
Yeah. It's authentic.
It is. Let me get a few text messages. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, congratulations on receiving your quilt, as I think you're very deserving. Thank you, my brother. So thank you for all you've done, your service for our country, and to your listeners. Thank you, Jeff Rowe. Well, you're as much a part of it as anybody, man. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you. Also, did you see that over 100,000 people marched the streets of Great Britain mourning Charlie Kirk and protesting illegal immigration, and Elon Musk was also there talking to the crowds? I didn't know Musk was there. How'd that go? He didn't get arrested, I guess, huh?
It was quite the scene. I don't know if you saw any videos of all the people that were
did.
there with the flags. It was
I think it was
awesome.
more than 100,000. I think it was I think it's huge.
And it was a planned thing for a while, but obviously in the wake of the Charlie Kirk situation, it made it even more powerful and impactful. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Johanna from Hartsville says, Phil, I lead a ladies' Bible study at my church, and yesterday we dedicated our time together talking about Charlie and Erica Kirk and what a special people they are. One of our ladies said she heard he went from 1 million followers to over 10 million over the weekend. I think he had more than 1 million to begin with, but yeah, how about that? So we're praying for a God-inspired breakout of revival for our young people like we've never seen. We need real solid husband-led church-going families in America again. Dear Jesus, help us. Joanna, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Joe in Tennessee says quilts are the warmest heat reflectors ever. Best home comfort device for fall and winter known to man. Never saw a shabby one. Never. I know. And you know what? Once they get even worn in, they're better. Like you get a good old quilt all broken in and used up, and it doesn't matter if it has holes in it. It's still good. Dave from Capshaw says, how many cities burned this weekend in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination? Let me think about that. Yeah, about that many. No doubt. Alif Mathin says, no price can be put on the value of one's name, and Charlie taught that well. Let us pick up his baton and run the race with patience and grace. Indeed, Alif, thank you. Chris from Athens says, Colonel Williams, not sure if this, hang on a second. This might be a question. I didn't even read it ahead of time. Not sure if this is a you question or more of a Mr. Town. He said, I can't control reading it. Is the Kirk shooter is found mentally ill and unable to stand trial, would that mean he would not get executed, just locked up for life? Also, I know tons of people are calling for the guy's head, but that's not the stance to take, even though I understand the stance. If anyone could call for that, that would be the Kirks, not people who influenced and are not his family, even though Charlie Kirk would not be okay with that. So the bottom line is, Chris, good text. Thank you. Once I got through, like, trying to read it, I apologize. The bottom line is the governing law of the charges brought will be what trumps this situation. So right now, we understand that tomorrow, because of state law being the way it is in Utah, that he will be charged with state crimes tomorrow. And my understanding is one of those is aggravated murder. And under Utah law, aggravated murder does allow for the death penalty as a potential sentence. And the governor of the state has said that he is pressing for that to be the case. The other question before us right now is, will he receive any federal charges? Will any federal charges be levied in this case? The DOJ is weighing that right now. There has to be a jurisdictional question. There has to be something that's put in place for the feds to actually be able to bring charges. And there's some indication, I think, that if he, because he may have conspired on the internet, that could create federal. And I don't know, or hate crime could create federal. We'll talk to Jay Town about that. But in the bottom line is, Chris, people can say what they want. The law is what's going to say whether a death penalty is available or not. And then Brian from Decatur says, is there a way the president or the Justice Department can streamline the eventual appeals process against the death penalty? That way this piece of scum doesn't stay on death row for 30, 40 years. No, there's not. The only ones who can do that are Congress on federal or states in some way. But they're not going to get around the constitutional rights of due process that allow you an appellate court system, and you play it out. Now, if there's a backlog, that's a different story. If there's a backlog that's just a logistical issue, then it's up to whatever governing body's in charge of it to try and expedite processes and not allow things to be weighed down over time in such a way that they just sit there. But when it comes to curtailing the actual rights to due process and, and pursuing every avenue available to any citizen, you don't curtail that. Last one, I'll go to my stuff, my dippers. John C. from Madison says, I saw on Facebook that Charlie Kirk debated the guy that shot him. That's actually been proven incorrect.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, it's not true. It's not.
There's a lot of stuff flying around that's just not true.
Yeah, it's not. But here's one thing I will tell you, though, and I'll jump on into my material here. In the aftermath of Charlie's shooting, one of the things that's happened, it's being said right now, townhall.com has an article. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Dateline yesterday. Over 18,000 new TPUSA chapters have applied overnight. Now, how many of those are going to wind up being real and I don't know. All I know is this. Before the attack, there were roughly 9,000 college chapters and really only about a dozen at the high school level around the nation for TPUSA, Turning Point USA. They have now seen over 18,000 applications for new chapters around the world, universities asking for the opportunity to become a Turning Point chapter. Now, there's going to be, some vetting. There's going to be some, you can't just use the brand. There's going to have to be an application process, but this is huge. The article ends by saying many are calling this the real turning point, a phrase that now means far more than it did when Kirk launched his Turning Point USA in his garage in Illinois as a teenager. His death did not silence the movement. It lit a fire in not only Americans, but people around the world. I think that's accurate. And there's a bunch of people losing their jobs by now. And we're going to go to an audio clip. I'm going to pull that audio clip of JD Vance, if you don't mind, get that ready. But I will say this, there's been a wake being left behind of what I would call self-inflicted wounds as people get out there and crow about it. I had somebody, and I got to do a little looking at it before I start naming names, but I had somebody send me earlier today, right before I came upstairs for the show, about a University of Alabama so-called professor who is crowing about Charlie's death right now. People are losing their jobs. Some are saying, see, this is what the right does. It's intolerant. You can't even have freedom of speech. That's not the same thing. If you're an at-will employee, first of all, at-will employee, not bound to contract or tenured in some way like a teacher. If you're an at-will employee, you can be fired at will for cause or no cause, they say. What that basically means is you can wear the wrong color shirt to work, and if they don't like it, they can let you go because they're not bound to keep you by law. Now, they can't discriminate against you for things like your color and your gender and whether you're pregnant, that kind of stuff. That's called disparate treatment when that happens. But in this particular case, if you are in a position of responsibility and you evidence such a callous indifference to the sanctity of life, why would they want to keep you? If you're such a horrible person that, like in this particular case, Fox News has a story, a school resource officer. You know what that is? That's the one who guards kids. That's a police officer who guards kids. A school resource officer in an affluent suburban New York school district was pulled from her post because of her social media comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Literally out there saying things like, well, that white sniper was overqualified when he put that hole in your neck, honey bunny. That's a school resource officer who we have to trust will have good judgment to take care of kids, who can't even tell when the murder of someone is not something you laugh about, and she's allegedly a police officer. Pulled her from the job. Well, she's been pulled. You've seen people like, what's his name, Matthew Dowd, fired from MSNBC. MSNBC. If MSNBC is going to fire somebody, you know it was bad. You've got people in the military right now that are being told to, expect a review if you're out there crowing about it. I got a story here from Daily Wire. Daily Wire dateline 2 days ago, the Pentagon is tracking the social media accounts of service members and War Department employees for messages celebrating or mocking the death of GOP activist Charlie Kirk. Why? Why not? What we don't want is people who are entrusted with the sanctity and security of our nation, who will go to foreign places, who have a callous disregard for life. As soldiers, you may have to take a life, but you should never seek the idea to take a life. You should never be joyful about the idea of a life being taken. And the idea that people would crow about this clearly represents a lack of judgment that might disqualify them for the sacred service of the military. Hegseth responded by saying, we're tracking all these very closely and we will address them immediately. It's completely unacceptable. Yeah, rightfully so. Now, today, in the aftermath of Charlie's shooting, Vice President JD Vance actually hosted the entire daily radio show that would normally have been Charlie Kirk's show. And as he spoke, he had some pretty stout words about where he thinks this is headed, and all the talk about we should accommodate each other's views. There's a point where accommodation means capitulation, and we shouldn't have to just be unified with people who want to do us harm. Play it.
There's no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
That's a pretty powerful statement. That's the Vice President of the United States who took the microphone and did a radio show, much like we're doing one right now, who sat there on open mic and just went at it for a good hour.
More than that.
Oh, is it 2 hours?
Yeah, I believe actually it was a 3-hour show.
Oh.
I don't know if he did the whole 3 hours today, but it was a 3-hour radio show that he did.
Wow. Wow. And his statements are powerful. His statements are real. And in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's shooting, I ask you to stop and think, how many buildings were burned? How many stores were looted? How many schools were ransacked? How many people were assaulted on the streets in the name of Charlie Kirk? The answer is none. What the Vice President of the United States is pointing out right there is people have got to start saying enough is enough. The violence and the rhetoric have got to come down. But I would suggest to you, it is not the right that is perpetuating this, because the right side of the aisle is not the one burning down whole city blocks when they see something they don't like. And nobody who rioted for George Floyd knew George Floyd or were influenced by George Floyd or had something about their lives touched by George Floyd. There were no testimonies in support of George Floyd's life. There was nothing about his good name that gave people the impetus for how they felt after he was gone. Charlie Kirk, quite the opposite. You got an entire nation of people, literally millions of people, who are disgusted, saddened, feeling bereaved and beat up about it, and hating the idea that a voice that we respected has been removed, and yet we didn't burn a thing down. So I agree with the Vice President. We are not required to be unified with those who want to do us harm. If they want to recant from that position, we can have a dialogue and not have to agree. We can get that. But we sure don't have to be in unity with those who want to do us harm. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. He never said, go get walked on. There's a big difference. We'll take a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
My parents' faith is not my faith. My parents' faith is not what's going to get me into heaven.
Perfect.
My dad's faith wasn't my mom's faith. My mom's faith wasn't her kid's faith. So we have our own faith in the person of Jesus Christ. So I do believe that you can't always lean on your mom and dad if they were Christians or if they were not Christians. You're going to answer for what you do. And what does that mean? When I say what you do, how do I transact with the person of Jesus Christ? Faith is not a work. I can have faith in the person of Jesus Christ and accept what he's done for me on the cross, or I can do what Pilate does, wash my hands and believe the lie that I'm innocent of this man's blood. So there is an aspect of you that is involved. Does that make sense?
There is.
Now, me being involved for just who I am, and everybody's different. Some people might write it down. Some people might memorize it. I would go on deployments, and I would just write because I could memorize better writing. I'd start in Genesis on, you're on a 6-month deployment to Afghanistan. If we weren't opping, we're watching movies. I can quote movies and all that, and my wife drives her crazy. How do you know these movies? We watch tons of movies on deployment. And I would write just word for word, just what I was reading in my Bible. My granddaddy told me, he said, hey, read a Proverbs a day and it will make you wise. And I gave him, before one deployment, I gave him a Bible I had when I was in high school. I think the only thing I ever read was Proverbs. I'd read Proverbs a day and I would annotate it. And I gave it to him, and literally it was all marked up. And I said, I read a Proverbs a day. And he told me, he said, well, that's good, son, but I didn't mean only read Proverbs. You ought to read the rest of the Bible as well. So there's that aspect too. We pick the things that we like. And I've learned that over time. And now I do the Bible throughout the year in about 10 months. It takes me to go through the whole Bible.
Yeah. So let me ask you,
it sticks.
It does stick. Yeah. And obviously, I would say you definitely had some intentionality attached to it too. But let me ask you this: has there been a time? And I'm really chasing a rabbit right now. But has there been a time? Because God's word never comes back void. Yeah. Has there been a time when you were in the thick of something and a verse came back to you that you hadn't even thought of for a while, and it just like, wow, I needed to ponder on that for a minute? Yeah.
So I don't know if it's one that I'd never thought of for a while. I'll use a training example. A lot of times I hate Bud's training examples because a lot of guys that just tell Bud stories is because they have no war stories. That's what I've learned. They've never killed anybody or, actually been in combat. The training stories I'm not big on, but this is one where this would apply, I guess. There was a Master Chief, and I believe his name was Guild, Master Chief Guild. If I remember right, I'm probably getting it wrong. I could text somebody and see. But either way, he was doing a program. He was part of a program where he would mentor Bud students as they were going through. They were trying to get numbers up because training was pretty much the same across the board. Standard the same. The percentage was the same. They increased Bud's classes. We had 366 start with ours in class 264, and 32 actually graduated SQT and got a Trident, right? So, you're looking at less than 10% by the time you get selected to go to a SEAL team. And then once you get there, now you've got, sniper school. We lost 60%, 40% of us graduated and became snipers. And these are all SEALs, right? So we lost 60% in sniper school that had to go back to a team and didn't get sniper quad. You lose like green team, selection for development group, what everybody refers to as SEAL Team 6, Special Mission Unit. Those are all SEALs. A lot of them good dudes, but you'll also lose 60% of those, and 40% of those guys will become Special Mission Unit SEALs. So there's always a selection process where there's an attrition rate. Make sense? And they're trying.
Well, there should be.
As it should be. If it was
easy, everybody do it, right?
Exactly right. But what they're doing is they're trying to increase those numbers because we need more SEALs, we need more snipers, we need more guys screening for Special Mission Unit. Right. Because of the way the war was going at the time. This is 2006, and he was going through Buds with us, and he would meet with students, and he would say, "Hey guys, look, this is what people do." He would go to the NFL, go all over the place, and figure out what mindset things, and all kinds of things. He'd bring it back and try to present it. And he said, every warrior across, the all of history, all of the planet, all of history, had a mantra. They had something they held to, something they leaned on, whether it was their belief system in a God, whether it was their family, whether it was whatever it is as a mantra. And I'm some dumb redneck kid from Alabama, 19 years old. I didn't know what a mantra was. And he said, what's that one thing that you can hold to that will help you make it through this process? Because if you can hold to something else besides the pain that you're going through, the distress of, hypothermia, cold water, getting beat and buzz, all that stuff. If you can hold to something else, you can make it through. But if you concentrate on what you're going through, you'll never make it. Right? That was kind of his, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with all that, but that's what he.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so we got I got another clip I want to play for you. I've not heard it, but JP was telling me about it earlier that RFK Jr. and I've heard, by the way, that I did hear that RFK Jr. credits Charlie Kirk with the reason why he agreed to join the Trump administration. Yep. That he accepted the call from Trump after a conversation with Kirk. So that's amazing.
And they held a vigil at the Kennedy Center yesterday, which this is a clip from RFK, hands down, had the best speech of the night.
Well, then this is in the aftermath of this whole dipper is called Turning Point Aftermath. And And coming up here after the top of the hour break, we're going to have former U.S. Attorney Jay Town calling in to talk about the charging of the shooter. But in the meantime, let's hear what RFK had to say. Play it, bud.
I had a conversation once with Charlie where we were talking about the danger that we both faced from challenging entrenched interests. And he asked me if I was scared to die. And I said to him, there's a lot worse things than dying. And one of those... and chief among those is losing our constitutional rights and having our children raised in slavery. And I said to him at that time, I said, sometimes our only consolation is that we can die with our boots on. We can die fighting for these things. Charlie gave his life so that the rest of us would not have to suffer those fates worse than death. Now it's our job, he's no longer there to lead us, to rush in and fill the breach and win this battle for our country, for God, and for our families. Thank you all.
Wow. Every once in a while, there's an event that takes place that I wish I'd been at. I can name a few. I think that would be one of them.
Yeah. And RFK, who's lived through 2 assassinations in his own family.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, this is unfortunately something he's dealt with before, but I think he nailed it around the head. Like, that was perfect.
Yeah, that absolutely was. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll take this break. We'll come right back. Hour number 2, we're going to start off with bringing in U.S. Attorney Jay Town, former U.S. Attorney Jay Town, talking to us about the sentencing of the shooter. Now, the indictment, when it comes down, the charges, if you will, we have state and potentially federal. Why, what, where will it go? Is there going to be a death penalty? We'll break it down with Jay Town here momentarily. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Out. And so I prayed to God. I mean, I knew the one thing I held to was God as a Christian. Grew up as a Christian, right? Got saved when I was 6 years old, asked Jesus into my heart. Like, God, what could my mantra be? I think it has to be in you. You know, I'm here for my family, for me. I want to do this, but it's in you. What is it? And it was 2 Corinthians 12:9, I believe, is the verse that says, it's when Paul was asking God, he's saying, hey, take away these thorns in my flesh, right? Whatever the issue was. People, some theologians say, believe it was a sight. Some people believe it was other things. But he said, take away these thorns in my flesh. He asked 3 times, and God 3 times said no. And then God says to Paul, he says, my strength, this is 2 Corinthians 12:9, my strength is sufficient for you. Or my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in your weakness. And I thought, that's it. And so that is a scripture that the Lord gave me in that time that I really didn't even, I'm sure I'd read it before, but I was a young kid. It's not like it was just brought up to my mind. I remember specifically reading that as I'm praying, reading that in a Bible, in my study Bible, and being in 2 Corinthians, and that scripture stuck out at me. And so that's what all right, God, your grace is sufficient for me. Your strength will be made perfect in my weakness. And that's in that book. Buds wasn't that hard as far as a physical standard. Like, you could pass, I could probably even now at 40 years old pass most of the standards. I can still do the O course. I could probably do first and maybe second phase 4-mile time run times. I could probably still do the swim. It's not actually that hard. It's the continuation of it through injury, through constant work that makes it so hard. They make you bad at things that you are often good at. That's why so many athletes struggle with it. So anyway, that's probably the best example I can give of a scripture that
that's
I held
a good one.
to.
And I had when I was my first tour downrange when I was mobbing out of Bragg,
We had some SEER instructors that spent time with us, and I'll never forget. And I've actually talked about this before. I don't even remember what all they told me. I don't remember how to do my search and rescue dot, but I probably could now. But the reality is, one thing that stuck out with me was he said at one point he like just stopped in the middle of it, like it was an unplanned moment, and he goes, "Hey, let me just say, if you don't already have something bigger than yourself that you believe in, you better get it right now before you go downrange, because if they ever take you, you better have something to hang on to that's more than you."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And for me, that was my faith.
Yeah.
And for me, that was mine in downrange was Psalm 91, the soldier psalm they call it.
That was my wife's on my first deployment.
And my wife's the one who gave it to me.
Okay.
I don't think I even knew Psalm 91 until she gave it to me.
No, I didn't. My wife can quote it word for word still.
Absolutely.
We were married. How old was she? I think I was 21. I might have been 22, and she was 19. We got married, and and 2 months later, I rolled to Afghanistan, and it was a great deployment. Man, it was the Wild West. We're killing everybody we came in contact with. Those bad guys. It was what you trained for. It's what you desired. It's what you were going to do. It was great. Now hindsight being 2020, it's like, should we have even really been there? Now knowing what we've done, or at least seeing how they pulled out of Afghanistan. And but at the time, man, it's what you wanted to do as a young SEAL. And my wife, though, she knew that. She knew that what we were going into, what we were doing, and she prayed Psalm 91 every day. That was her verse.
Charlene did the same. My wife did the exact same thing. You look at my notes. That's a perfect segue. Let me do this.
No, I can't even read your notes.
Tell me. I can read I'm the only one who can read my notes.
That's important. That's the only thing that matters.
So tell me about your wife. So y'all met, and she's a team wife, obviously.
Yeah, she is.
Which is not easy.
No. Yeah, she. We met. We were just talking about this the other day. I think she's 3.5 years younger than I am. I'm 39 right now, and she's about to turn 36. So we met. She was 18, and I was whatever that would have been, 21 into 22. I had just I'd been a SEAL for like 6 months, maybe 8 months, right? I did my first.
So you were still a SEAL pup.
I was a SEAL pup, man. I was a new guy. I did my first, deployment, or what they would count as a deployment. I checked in at the end of an Iraq deployment, stayed in Germany doing working with the Group 1 leadership as they're doing a pass-through. Decompression stop is what they called it for the whole team. So I stayed there as the whole team rotated through from Iraq. And I can't remember where we went into in Iraq, but I went with a master chief. Me and just a master chief went into Iraq. We had to check in and do something, and I can't remember what we did, and then we flew over to Germany. It was only there for a week. And that's one point I like to make in these podcasts. Guys or anytime I talk, guys will be like, oh, yeah, Iraq, Afghanistan, or whatever we are. Just because I've got an Iraqi ribbon, Operation Iraqi Freedom or whatever. You got guys that have that stuff all the time. They got their combat action badge or their combat action ribbon or whatever. Just because you were in a country where combat was happening doesn't mean that you were in combat, right? And so there is a lot of that goes on. Just because I was in Iraq doesn't mean that I was doing what the boys were doing in Salter City, that deployment. I checked in at the tail end of that, and then I went to Germany. So just because you're a part of it doesn't mean you were doing it. And there is a misconception with that a lot of times. One, with how people receive it, but also, two, with maybe even how guys present it sometimes. So there's probably I don't know. I like to make sure that that's understood. Went to Germany, went to get back from that, and was selected to go to sniper school as a new guy, which is very rare. And so I went to sniper school, and that was when I met my wife. And
you met her at sniper school?
Yeah. So before I went to sniper school, I had to bring all the weapons that we were bringing back from. They landed at one of it might have been Fort Bragg. But they landed at one of the Army bases. I think it was Fort Bragg. They landed there. Me and another guy, a buddy of mine, I won't say his name, he's at Red Squadron still, or he was at Red Squadron. He might be, he was an instructor at Green Team not too long ago, so he might still be over there. But me and him flew out to pick up those weapons for SEAL Team 3 and escort them back to the West Coast because they landed at the East Coast at one of the Army bases. And when we flew out to pick those up, they let him fly back with them by themselves because I didn't go on leave when I graduated SQT. I checked in pretty much immediately I was at the team for like a week, painting bathrooms and doing stupid stuff, with a couple of guys. And then we went to the tail end of the Iraq deployment into that Germany thing. So they said, hey, since you didn't get to go on leave, fly over here with Chris, and y'all pick up those weapons, account for them. I helped him inventory them. He can fly back with them by himself because we're going to have somebody meet him in San Diego, and you can drive home. My mom and dad came and picked me up in North Carolina. They drove to North Carolina, picked me up, and drove me home, and I stayed at home for 7.
Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, we're going to bring somebody on who's no stranger to this show. He's no stranger to this channel, for that matter. One of our channels out of Huntsville, especially. Jay Town is a former U.S. attorney, also a longtime career prosecutor, and, oh, by the way, had been a JAG officer in the U.S. Marine Corps. And he's currently out in the private sector, but he's still got his hand on the on the lawful pulse of America. He's on the air with us right now. Jay Town, how you doing?
Bill, how are you?
I'm good,
to see you,
man.
my friend.
I'm good. Thanks for making time for us.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so in your experience, I want to dive right into it. Right now, what we're hearing is the DOJ is still weighing the possibility of federal charges. And
Yep.
I understand there's some nuances to whether Fed could get involved in this or not with the shooting of Charlie Kirk. But we also know that Utah has got its own state law charges, which I think they can levy as early as tomorrow.
Yep.
Give us the lowdown, man. What are you expecting on the charging sheet?
So I think with Utah, they have, like any state with the death penalty, they can file a murder or a capital murder charge. Some states require that you actually have a capital murder charge come out of a grand jury. It doesn't matter. The guy's going to be charged with capital murder in the state of Utah, and then 60 days after the arraignment tomorrow, I understand, Phil, you're correct. They then announce that they're seeking or not seeking the death penalty, which they will seek the death penalty in this case. At least that's what Governor Cox has told us. And so, people need to understand that this gives the federal government a lot more time to shore up its proofs, to shore up its evidence, right? I mean, so as long as the guy's in custody, he's been charged, and he won't be let out of custody, then, which all those things are true, then the feds can take their time. They can take a couple of months. They're still, like they just announced, DNA was found on the towel and the screwdriver that belonged to Tyson Robinson, and that the firearm was wrapped in that towel and the screwdriver next to it. That's incredible evidence. There's going to be more evidence. They're scrubbing social media and chats into DMs inside of gaming apps and things like that. They're going to interview a couple hundred people, find out what they knew after or before. I mean, that's all super valuable information to the state of Utah. They probably don't have the resources, Phil, to do all of that.
Yeah.
So the feds are going to go ahead and they're going to finish their investigation, and then they're going to talk to General Bondi and say, hey, here's the evidence. Here's what we can prove. The interesting thing is that, for just so folks know, for a death penalty case, think of it, it's an aggravated murder case. If you could, it's even worse than a normal murder, if you can wrap your mind around such a thing, because all murders are awful. You kill a child under the age of 12, or 2 or more people, or a law enforcement officer. In this case, there's really 2 aggravating factors the feds can charge: that there was substantial planning and premeditation.
Okay.
There was. He drove 200 miles each direction to commit the murders, and wrote a bunch of stuff on the anti-fascist, very leftist-leaning messages on the rounds, spent and unspent rounds. Clearly substantially planned. And then a grave risk of death to others. Now, I want folks to understand this. When you fire to specifically kill somebody, but you fire into a crowd of people, you put all those other people into a grave risk. Now, he wanted to kill Charlie Kirk, and he did. But that bullet, it was going through a real sort of fatty part of the body. And I'm sure it barely missed somebody on the other side of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And it could, and if he had taken more shots, more people were put in risk. So that's also another aggravating factor that the feds, and that happens to also be the aggravating factor that Utah would use as well. So this is going to move along slowly. We're not going to have a trial this year, folks. He's going to be mentally evaluated. They're going to go through. If you want to kill someone, you have to go through a lot of legal hoops. I've tried death penalty cases. I've put a couple of people on death row, in fact, and it's incredibly difficult to do. But you got to have the will to do it. Sounds like the DA in Provo and I know our Attorney General of the United States has the will to do it. It just has to take the legal amount of time that it does. So everybody has to have patience. But the feds, if they don't charge somebody soon, they're still doing their job.
Well, so let me ask you on that with in terms of Fed charges. So, I mean, we anticipate right now aggravated murder being the lead charge on of the state side. What do you anticipate would be the federal charges if the feds do decide to go that route? I mean, I've heard hate crime. I've heard that something related to being on the internet could wind up creating the possibility of federal charges. What are your thoughts on that? Where do you think that's going?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I mean, I think that the hate crime, committing the murder, in the basis of which was political, I think that's probably the easiest one. I mean, you just have to find some sort of federal nexus to get into the capital murder realm, which is where you basically just get into aggravated murder based on maybe some sort of civil rights violation or something like that. I mean, there are, federal murder charges. So I think that I don't think they're going to overcharge it. I think you're going to see maybe Utah will have a lot of other charges, but I think the feds they're either not going to charge at all, or it's just going to be one of these federal murder charges based on, like you said, Phil. They killed him. He killed him because of politics or whatever. And again, that's why the investigation is so important to talk to all these individuals that knew the defendant, because he will have given the motive. He's not talking to law enforcement. Jesus, Phil. He has not talked to law enforcement, but he did talk to his father. I'm sure he talked to his roommate, his boyfriend. I think that those people probably have a really good idea as to why he did it, and those are important factors into whether or not the feds charge. And if the feds don't charge, and oftentimes when the punishment can be no worse at the federal level than the state level, quite honestly, the feds normally don't spend any time on it. But this might be one of those rare exceptions where they do.
Well, I think the level of notoriety is going to, at the very least, bring a federal investigation they could turn over to the state. But yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you this: there's also the possibility of co-conspirators. Like for instance, there are any number of people in his online chat rooms who we're hearing unsubstantiated stories that they may well have known in advance. They colluded together on how it would work. What could you do? When would you do it? Charlie Kirk's coming. Aren't you going to do something? If what would you take in your thoughts to get to a point of bringing in co-conspirators?
Yeah, you would have to have them actually not encouraging him, not telling him, here's how I would do it, but they have to actually conspire to help him and take a step to do it. Like send him a link to where to buy this black shirt with a flag and an eagle on it, right? So I mean, whatever it is to make him blend in, that would be how you would charge a co-conspirator. But they would have to do more than just encourage him. It would have to actually be help, and that help had to have actually manifested itself. So. But it's not like that's impossible. I mean, it sure seems like a lot of people were rooting him on. But we'll have to wait for the investigation to play out. Nobody likes the patience that it takes to find Charlie. People were mad at the FBI that it took until they announced 33 hours, later that they had the guy. They were mad. They're like, "What are you guys doing? Fire Cash Patel." And I'm like, you solve a murder in 33 hours then. I mean, that's hard to do. There's 2,000 people there. There's no admission. There's no, nothing. And, you got to go through, it's painstaking. And sure enough, they got to the guy. And yes, the father turned him in. But the only reason the father turned him in is because the FBI made the tactical decision to plaster his son's face all over the internet, all over the news, all over anything that you saw, so that it was unmistakable that if that father didn't turn that son in, somebody else would have, because that kid was a recognizable face. And if the police just knocked on his door, God knows what would have happened. But it might not have been as nonviolent as what it was when the father called the police on the son.
Yeah, and I agree. In fact, that's where I was going to head next. My last question for you. We got about two to 2.5 minutes left. The level of transparency in that 33 to 36 hour period, I thought was rather remarkable. Now, granted, this was a very public crime. I mean, there are videos that were going everywhere. Some of them were heinous, but this was a very public moment. But the level of transparency that we saw from the DOJ, the FBI was like kind of bar none, in my opinion. Pictures were coming out immediately. They were putting together surveillance video. It wasn't just the online stuff. It was like their investigative file was finding this video, quickly put it out to the public. Your thoughts on the level of transparency?
It was amazing. And typically, if Comey was the director of the FBI, all that information would have been held back because we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't need any help. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, understands that the media, and he even thanked the media is a powerful tool. The internet is a powerful tool. And so, the same internet that radicalized this guy was the same one that brought him down. And why not harness that power? And that's exactly what the director did. And he should be praised for it. And he was transparent about every step the Bureau took throughout the investigation. And he's still bringing more transparency. I mean, to this morning, the guy's arrested. But hey, by the way, we found his DNA. Oh man, that's a big nugget. Try to defend yourself when your DNA is on the the firearm rather, right? I mean, that's tough. That makes it real easy for the prosecutors, and it's just getting easier because the Bureau's doing great work, as the Bureau does.
J-Town, as always, man, appreciate your insights on this, and if more comes up later on, we'll holler at you, okay?
Thanks, Phil. Have a great one.
See you. Well, that was good. I knew it would be. Let's take a break. We ran long, but we'll take that break. We'll come right back and wrap this topic up as long as y'all want to. We'll talk about it, or if you want to, text me, call me, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
They didn't even charge me any leave for it. They just let me go.
So she was back here. She's an Alabama girl?
She's an Alabama girl.
Okay.
And I met her during that time. My brother and his girlfriend at the time, now wife, somehow connected us, and her family went to my dad's church where he pastored at. We met up, went on one date, and then we just started talking, and somehow the Lord made it happen. 6 or 7 months later, I graduate sniper school, have a big family shoot, and we had been dating. I'd already gotten a ring. I called her. Her dad came up with my dad and brothers because they let him shoot all the sniper guns. They do like a family day. None of the girls came up. It was just my dad, my brothers, and Lauren's dad. And we're fishing in my buddy's pond up there that I'm still friends with, Troy Dehart. And I said, hey, man, to Greg, my father-in-law, I said, hey, man, I'm going to ask Lauren to marry me if it's okay with you. And he's like, oh, you better ask her. Just went back to fishing. That was it. So that's he was in
his happy place. Why bother him with that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then about 8 months later, we got married before I deployed to Afghanistan. So yeah, she was with me from the start, really, of my SEAL career, almost the start.
Team wife's not easy. I said that a minute ago. My wife, I've said that she's a rock. I mean, I've got multiple deployments, and she held down the fort. And at the same time, I never came home not knowing who my kids' teachers were, what their grades were, what the latest ins and outs of life were, because she made everything just seem so relevant and updated me constantly.
Man. Yeah, dude,
but she also kept all the bills paid and the yard mowed and the whole thing, man. I mean, but at the same time, you were active duty in the teams. That's a high up tempo life. How was it for her and for the marriage?
I mean, it was good. I mean, she misses the teams a lot of times. She liked because her parents were divorced, and so she bounced around between her grandparents, her mom, her dad, and she's got a good family and had a good life. Close with her brother. Her brother's a good dude. Works for Alabama Power, pretty high up in Alabama Power. But Trent's a good guy, and we have close relationship with him. There's never bad relationship with anybody in the family, or at least on her side. She just wasn't settled. So team guy life for her and team wife life was actually pretty good because she was used to that. Going to be at mom's, going to be at dad's, going with my grandparents. She was used to kind of that bouncing around, and so she would do that, and
God built her for it.
Kind of. It's almost like he kind of knew what she was going to go into, and she would have never thought she'd be that. Now she hates it when I deploy, hates it when I go somewhere. She pitches a fit if I ever say I'm going overseas to do anything. Right? She doesn't, but she was actually pretty good at it. She misses the community team guy life. She does miss that. She even talks about it now. We didn't have kids while I was in the teams. That was one thing. She did not want to have kids in the teams because she got to know so many women. We lost dudes all the time, So I say all the time. We lost dudes regularly, and she went to those funerals with me. We went to funerals and put your trident in a coffin, and she knew their wives. And some of these guys had kids, and now daddy's gone from it. She just didn't. For her, of course, we were married. She was 19 at the time. I think I was 22 into 23, around that age range, and we didn't. She just did not want to have kids in that life with me deploying. That was probably the biggest thing, is it being hard to start a family.
Did you have connectivity? I mean, it's crazy. Modern deployments. My granddad went to World War II. He was a glider rider.
Talk to anybody.
And he was gone for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I came home when it was done. But did you have connectivity? Could you call home, email, that kind of thing?
We did, whenever somebody would die in country, that which happened pretty regularly. You go River City, and not be able to talk for a week or 3 days until the next of kin was notified.
Right.
I mean, we would still talk some. You call out on sat phone, different things, but generally speaking, it was hit or miss. But we did have connectivity. We were on a fob one day, and I was talking to her on the phone on a green line, and a little bit of a delay. We're just talking, and all of a sudden here, a mortar came in, or a recoilless rifle rocket came in and hit, and it was like, hey, I got to go. We got to get to our fighting positions, and she's like, what was that? And he just hung up the phone and bounced. So she did deal with stuff like that she talks about now that she didn't like at the time.
My wife tells the exact same story. I'm sitting on the roof of our safe house in Afghanistan, where my team was located, on a sat phone talking to her, and all of a sudden something went cha-choom.
Yeah.
And she goes, what was that? I said, nothing, baby. And I'm looking at one of my guys going, what was that?
Yeah, gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We did have we had the same connectivity, and we had the same comms blackouts if we lost somebody. And I'll never forget, I had a special phone because I did a lot of interconnectivity on my second tour in Baghdad, and we had Sadr City and parts of Rasafa district. And
where were you in Sadr City?
04.
Okay, all right, yes.
But and it was a mess.
Oh,
we lost some
man.
good guys, but we had one particular day where it was a coordinated ambush. We had IED strikes followed by small arms and RPGs that took out 3 of our guys. And so the comms blackout went in. Well, my wife... And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so we're drawing down to the close of this particular dipper, the turning point aftermath. If you got any more thoughts on it, I'm glad to hear it. I told myself that I was going to have a full show with 3 dippers, but at the same time, more often than not, this audience helps guide the way the show runs. And so if you guys want to talk about it further, we'll be glad to do it. Let me get a few text messages on this. Let's see what we got. My mouse is not working. There we go. Tom with all the kids in Huntsville says, what does the Army need? I'll tell you, drones, AI, and hand grenades. I'm not sure why that's being said, but okay. Is that related to my dipper coming up, military minded later on?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. Okay. David at Bucky's says, Phil, I guess I must be the only person who didn't know who Charlie Kirk was before his tragic death. Well, then you missed out, brother. But I tell you what, I would encourage you to go ahead and check out his legacy now. I mean, the videos are it's amazing to watch. I think that's what gets me the most. It's amazing to watch the manner in which he addressed almost everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was the master of arguing the points of conservatism in the most hostile territories, but also doing it respectfully.
Yeah.
He never degraded or humiliated anybody's character that he was talking to, although the left loves to say that. If they're saying that, they actually haven't watched or are being truthful about what they've watched with Charlie Kirk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And can I say something else too?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen it. I know we talked about a certain video that you saw of the amount of people who went back to church after years of not going to church
Yeah.
in response to Charlie Kirk's death. Like, imagine that your legacy of your death causing so many people to come back to church.
Yeah.
I think that right there alone says all you need about Charlie Kirk and the impact he had. And I think the way we win this battle is we have to win it. The people of my generation have to engage in politics and get into power so that these people that are killing others over their viewpoints, they're not the ones that come into power eventually. I mean, if you look down, you think that the Nancy Pelosi's or the Chuck Schumer's or them, they don't even know what they're saying. They don't even know what a fascist is. Like, they're just saying that to appease their younger generation, liberals. The liberals of my generation actually believe it, and they will kill you over it, obviously. So that's the way we win this battle long term. It's good versus evil in the sense of the Christians, they have to engage in politics and spread the gospel through politics. That's the only way we win. And what I saw yesterday, I'll just say of people going back to church, I think makes me optimistic for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, you referenced a video that I talked about earlier. And it's about the one with the guy in the suit, right?
Yes.
If you have not seen it, have you had a chance to watch it now?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it humble you?
It does. Yes.
So this is going viral right now, and it's posted on my social media. You can find it on my Twitter feed or X feed at Senphil Williams, Senphil Williams. But this guy posted the video, and it's the most humbling thing. I mean, it's so real. It's so genuine. You look at it and go, this isn't fake. This is real. There's no way around it. And this young man is saying, my fiance bought me, he's wearing a suit. He says, my fiance bought me this suit. And she wanted me to have something nice. And I've never, he said, we're finally starting to make some money. And we're not rich, but we're getting by. And she felt like I needed to have a nice suit. And he said, I've never owned anything like this. Never owned anything this nice. And then he said, and I also am just really, it's really something to me to watch what's happened with Charlie Kirk dying. And he said, and so I've decided this brand new suit my fiance wore or brought me, I'm going to wear it this weekend to church. And I haven't been to church in a long time. He said, but I feel like it's time, and I'm going to wear my new suit to church. And I mean, it almost bring you to tears watching it.
Yeah.
The dude was so real. I mean, even at one point the phone fell down while he's trying to film it.
Yeah. But I think good people with a good conscience and the Holy Spirit in them, even if they may have drifted from God for whatever reason, I think they sense the spiritual darkness, like evil showed its face. Yeah. I think that kind of woke them up of it's important to like that. It's just the world we live in, unfortunately.
Absolutely. It is a world that we live. Okay. So let me get a few more text messages, and I got some things we'll talk about when we get back. Jenkins from Sneed, Alabama says church this past Sunday was most full I've ever seen it. Almost all the seats completely full. Glad to hear it, man. Joe in Tennessee says, quilt posting for duty when temperatures are below. What's he saying? Oh, he's got his favorite quilt for the cold ones. Yep, absolutely. Jack in Huntsville says, Colonel, the only way I can figure out how a lefty thinks is to think the opposite of what's right or what logically makes sense. But I can't figure out if lefties would like this evil assassin to go to trial. Your thoughts? I don't think they will, because it's going to call attention to how off base he really was. He's not going to be a martyr for the cause. He's the one that got caught. They'd have been much happier if he got taken out at the scene, I think. Adam from Athens says, we have to remember that if the shooter was to repent, he would still be accepted into heaven. I truly believe that Charlie would be there to welcome him to the gate. That was the man he was. And I agree with that. Absolutely. All right, you guys, we'll take a break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Phone that I carried had the ability to call in. And I told her, I said, don't ever call in, hon, unless it's an emergency. If I call you, we'll talk, but don't call me. But if it's an emergency, just know you can. Well, she called that night because she's literally watching the news, looking at patches on the shoulder and realizing, oh my gosh, I think I know where that is. And I think that's Phil's unit. And she called me that night. Oh, it was a rough one.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's hard for the wife sometimes being back home.
Well, I mean, you got to think you're the one. You're not in the know. You're not in the know. But you're together. It says that's why Scripture tells us that the man leaves his parents so the two can become one flesh. I mean, so you join, you become one flesh, and we're a family. We are, I still have my mom and dad, still respect my mom and dad, but now I am the headship of this, and she is part of that, and we're one flesh. And when you go on these deployments, these wartime deployments, you're pulled apart, and she's living in the unknown all the time. Now, you know what's going on, right? And you're doing it. So that's that takes a strong person, not just a strong woman, just a strong person in general. When I say person, because you got kids that deal with the same thing too. They're part of that unit, that family unit. I don't say team for family. My wife likes saying team, and I'm like, no, family's not a team. A family's a family, which in my opinion is different than a team. I was a team guy for my entire career. That's what they call us. That's our nicknames, team guys. I know what a team is like. A family's not like a team. It's even deeper. It's more. It's a deeper rooted thing than a team. And a team is pretty deep. We can agree on that. Your family is one level deeper, and that's why we're born into the family of Christ. We're part of God's family in the person of Jesus Christ. It's more than a team. We're not teamed up with Christ. We're in His family. And so I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Let me ask you, let me segue off that. I'm going to chase a rabbit again. So you're a team guy.
Yeah.
And now you got a family, and God saw fit to make sure you had all girls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you come from team guy, law enforcement, doing all the alpha male stuff.
Yeah.
And yet you go home and you are so outnumbered right now.
Yeah, man. Well, I got a buddy he's got daughters too. He said, it just means I was man enough to blow the balls off of them. That's what he always says. So, sorry for the ladies that listen to this, but I always think it's funny. No, man, I wouldn't trade those girls for anything. I mean, it is different. Love my wife, have my wife, but those girls,
How old are they roughly?
9, 6, and 3.
Awesome.
So yeah, we got 9, 6, and 3, and
girls are hard too.
They're hard.
You wait, man, they're gonna be teenagers.
What I've learned, I think, in my brothers have sons, and they also have daughters. So I got nieces and nephews. We have more girls than boys in our family, the grandkids side. So all the cousins, we all get together. It's all girls, and just 4 boys now but there's a baby. He's Bennett is a little over a year. I think he's 18 months. So I say that to say those boys, I've noticed that they're destructive, but they're actually easier as children, is what we notice. I say they're easier as children. They're harder as little children because they're destructive than girls, because girls are not as destructive. But what I've seen now, looking at the teenage side of it, boys just kind of stay the same. You kind of know what you're getting. Yeah, they might be destructive, but boys are just kind of the same all the way through it. Those girls, they shift. There is a shift, and the drama comes in, and I'm already seeing it with a 9-year-old. I can't imagine, the teenage years. I mean, her and my wife fighting over like how our hair is going to be done, or clothes. The 3-year-old fighting over shoes. This is what girls do. What I've learned about girls, I actually asked ChatGPT this. I said, why do girls? You
went to the Oracle.
I went to the Oracle, ChatGPT. Why do girls always leave the drawers open? And ChatGPT, is that something in your house?
Yeah.
Dude, I am going to have a panic attack over drawers and cabinets in the house. It's pure laziness, I think, is what it is. A lack of discipline and laziness.
I refuse to affirm or deny anything that you just said.
But it's just like a clutter bomb. I would almost rather stuff just be destroyed. It's just like a clutter bomb of mess, all this little knick-knack crap everywhere, drawers open. That, to me, that's what drives me up a wall, right? And it's not just it's
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. Oh, yeah, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web. Live streaming the show. Looking right in the studio on the cameras. Live streaming the show every day on places like X and Rumble and YouTube and Facebook. And, oh, by the way, our website, rightsidemedia.org. Rightsidemedia.org. And then all you podcasters, the ones who catch it after the fact, listen, doesn't matter where y'all catch this show. The fact that you do blows us away. It makes it all worthwhile. So thank y'all very much. Hey, we got a text from Lee from Huntsville. I did not know this. This is cool. So Lee from Huntsville is telling me that a couple things. One is, she said her 18-year-old son told her after Charlie's death, "I'd rather die spreading the truth than live doing nothing about it." She said kids can surprise you with the depth of their feelings sometimes, and I think he grew up a good bit last Wednesday. How about that? That's strong, Lee. Thank you very much.
Many cases like that.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, Lee from Huntsville sent us a thing. There is a rally going to be in Tuscaloosa next week, or not next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, this week. The rally is being called "We Are All Charlie Kirk." It's a rally to remember Charlie Kirk and inspire the next generation. And there's got some very noted guests. C.J. Pearson, who, if you're not familiar, C.J. Pearson is a very dynamic young guy who, as a teenager, was blowing people away with his insights and ability to speak to the issues as a conservative. He's a young black conservative, which is great. Savannah Chrisley, Alexis Wilkins, and they say they expect other guests to be also announced at the last minute. But right now, it is free for all students, $15 for adults. It's going to be this coming Wednesday from 5 to 7. And it's at a place called Two Dimes, Bama. What is that place? Do you know what that is?
I've actually never heard of that place.
Two Dimes, Bama. So I don't know if that's, this is going to be a potentially big event.
Yes.
What kind of facility is that?
It looks like a pretty nice restaurant. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. At a restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Or an event venue, but I'm sure kind of attached to a restaurant. But yeah,
like where you might host a big wedding reception or something like that. Okay, so Two Dimes, Bama, the We Are All Charlie Kirk rally, and it looks to me like it is. I mean, anybody can go, but I would say it is absolutely geared towards a younger generation too. So if you have folks who are students, especially down there, or who want to travel down there, or you want to take a van load of them, get you some teenagers from the high school and go. This will be this coming Wednesday, and it's from 5 to 7. And
it says all funds that will be raised will benefit Erica Kirk and her children directly. So
that's cool. I didn't see that part. Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just telling you that might be a good one.
I bet it is. Yeah.
A couple more things to stay caught up with. Jack from Huntsville says, by the way, your answer is what makes sense. Hence okay. What we talk about? Oh, this is whether he would go to trial. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The claim from the left of this was a MAGA guy. No, I think that's all going to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, it already is out, but they're just deflecting like crazy.
By the way, how many MAGA guys do you know that are living with transgenders and in furry clubs, by the way?
And
he's in a furry club.
Writing, "Hey, fascist, catch" on the bullet. I don't think that sounds like a MAGA guy. That's just me, though.
It's just this absolute need for it not to be one of their own, and too late. Mike from Somerville, by the way, let me go back. The guy, was it Stephen Crooks that shot Trump? And we still know hardly anything about him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was the only teenager to not have any internet history whatsoever. No digital footprint at all.
Yeah. So this guy, though, has got an entire opinion life, if you will, out there that we'll be able to dissect and know. And wow. Mike from Somerville says, honestly believe if Charlie Kirk's death caused one person to accept Jesus Christ, our Lord, their Savior, that he would think it's all worth it. Point. And then Joanna from Hart says, JP, you encourage me so much. How about that? I'm going to read it out loud. Don't get embarrassed. JP, you encourage me so much. We need more conservative Christian men like you. Yes, our church was packed out yesterday. I'm praying for revival so we can get our country back, and getting our young people on board is critical for that to happen. I appreciate your input to Phil's show.
I appreciate that a lot, Johanna. And I can affirm there's a revival. It's coming.
There is. I believe it. By the way, JP's available. He's welcome to date your daughter. David in Huntsville says, Phil, I just read your statement of mission for us. Thanks to Charlie Kirk. Amen. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. Hey, listen, we're going to jump on into another topic, and it's got pieces of this woven into it. So just know that. But I think it's really, really important that we also go ahead and make sure that other things that are happening in the world are addressed and discussed. And I am willing to go back to this topic every time needed. So don't stop texting about it just because I moved to a different dipper. But right now, what I'm going to do is try to grab some stories. I like to say that as I'm resourcing the show early in the morning, I am putting things together so that you can have stuff that relates not just to out there somewhere, not just to what happens in DC, not just what happens on the international scene, but, oh, by the way, what happens in and around and amongst us. Because sometimes it's important for us to do what I call cooking up a batch of home fries. Yeah. Just cook them up, man. Just cook them up. Hey, one thing I think I want to note that is definitely a home fry segment. this today is tomorrow. Is it today? No, it's today. Today's the 15th. It's today is the anniversary, the 62nd anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, of what's known as the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. So if you're not familiar, we had 4 innocent young girls that their lives were taken. And I've got a list of their names here: Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Denise McNair. Those 4 young ladies were attending the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham on September 15th of 1963. And they were killed when that church, believe it or not, a church was bombed. And we shouldn't be surprised, because we just watched kids getting shot in a church just a few weeks ago in Minnesota. But it was a major race-related event. Happened during the onset of the civil rights movement, or excuse me, the turmoil of the civil rights movement. It wasn't really the onset, but it was definitely in the thick of it. And it was, it happened right here on our soil. And I like to say that no state has come further than Alabama. We were indeed the cradle of the Confederacy, and I know that, and I acknowledge that. We were also, oh, by the way, the state who was the cradle of the modern civil rights movement. And the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing never needs to be forgotten. I have a friend, somebody who I count as a friend, and we don't see each other very often, but I love the man, Bishop Jim Lowe. And Bishop Jim Lowe is a black pastor in the Birmingham area who has just an amazing, solid reputation, just a great guy. And he was one of the children in that church that day. And he distinctly remembers being in his church when it was bombed. And we've talked about it and at length. And his story and his ability to convey his story is amazing. And by the way, the man holds no animus. He is not one of those who says, because my church was bombed as a child and 4 of my young friends died, that I hate white people. He doesn't at all. He loves people. He loves Jesus and he loves people. And Bishop Jim Lowe has an amazing story. And you can look him up online. You can see him giving we need to get him on the show. What am I talking about? Why do I know the man and not have him on the show yet? What is wrong with that picture?
I don't know. Why don't we have him on the show?
I don't know. It just hadn't even occurred to me to have him on. Here we are looking at the 62nd anniversary. But so as part of your Home Fries segment, I wanted you to be aware of a major significant civil rights movement era and the heroes, those kids who died at the hands of a crazed individual. Yep, 62 years ago today. I got another story here. I pulled this one off of Yellowhammer. So some of y'all may know Cliff Sims. I do. I love Cliff. I count him as a friend. He's not one of a running buddy. We see each other all the time. But so when I was in the state Senate, Yellowhammer News kicked off, and it took the state by storm. And Yellowhammer News became like the go-to. What's happening? Yellowhammer then is what 1819 is right now in terms of being the one that leads on conservative and news reporting. And right now, I would say my 2 go-tos in the state of Alabama are 1819 News and Yellowhammer News. I get a lot of my stuff from them about what's happening here on the home front.
NotAO.com?
Yeah, okay. Anyway, but Cliff Sims is the guy who started Yellowhammer. Did an amazing job, had the ability to put quality into what he was doing like I'd never seen before. And then all of a sudden, one day I wake up and my friend Cliff's working for Donald Trump in the White House. I'm like, wow, how'd that happen? Where did this go? Cliff Sims. I had him come speak in Etowah County when I was the chairman of the Republican Party. One of the most dynamic speeches I've ever heard. And it was not like he gave this like super duper charged up speech, rallied the crowd, but everybody was entranced because here's a kid saying, my granddaddy was a sharecropper and now I'm flying on Air Force One. And he was like the American story. But Cliff Sims was apparently, I'm learning now, a friend of Charlie Kirk. Go figure. There's a story on Yellowhammer that Cliff Sims was, I saw the picture and it's true. When J.D. Vance escorted Charlie Kirk's casket, Cliff Sims was on the other side of the casket.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. You can look up the picture. And then Sims posted the footage of the moment saying, one more walk with our friend Charlie, followed by Philippians 3:8. And yeah, it says that Sims is a close friend and confidant of Kirk, like he is right now for Vice President Vance. Kirk was 31. I would bet that Cliff is probably pushing 40. But but just really solid. And love the fact that our friend Cliff, who started Yellowhammer News from Alabama, is in the mix and was absolutely there representing the state. All right, we're in Home Fries right now. I'm going to take a break. I'll take the break. I'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Wife and all of my daughters. So I got
but
four women
wait until she's 14 and the boy comes around.
Oh yeah, I don't even want. I'm not even thinking about that.
So my daughter, who's grown and married now, my daughter, I'll never forget one of her first boyfriends. So my dad, career Army, highly decorated, 2 tours in Vietnam. My granddad, career general officer when he retired, the whole thing. So the kid comes over to meet the family. Granddad comes in. My dad, who was probably less sensitive than me in many ways and some of this stuff, he's passed away now. Agent Orange finally caught up with him. But Dad walks in, looks at him and goes, "Oh, look, are you the guy?" And we apparently have a father and a grandfather, both trained to kill. How do you like that? Yeah, that was his introduction to the family. Yeah. But well, let me ask you this too. Being a team guy, did you ever have that moment where you came home and you're like in team guy, because you're like living in a locker room for a year on a deployment. Yeah. I mean, you go over there and it's all rough cut humor and maybe crass talk and things. And then you walk back in the house and it's the wife and 3 little girls. Yeah. And do you have to retool yourself?
I won't say you retool yourself. You just flip a switch on or off. I can be more like me in front of my wife, than I, and that's okay. And she just gets mad at me, she'll get mad at me for saying certain things. But as far as the girls, yeah, no, it's definitely a shift because of their age, right? Yeah. There is an age thing and I get that, but 2, because they are girls, and so it's just a switch you flip on or off. Like one of my, I don't know why, but the little one, I don't know who she heard it from one of her cousins, but she started calling everybody like the word that she used. She calls them a fartism. I don't know what a fartism is. I don't know, but she heard it from one of her cousins, I think, or maybe her older sister. She calls everybody a fartism. I said, hey, little girls don't use the word fart. And my older daughter, she says, I've heard you say it, Daddy. And I say, yeah, I've said it. And I said, but it's different for boys and girls. And my wife said, it's the same for anybody. I said, okay, I'm going to stop you because you're wrong. I said, can a little boy hit any little girl? No. All the girls go, and I said, now, what about little girls? Do they hit little boys? You go, yes, we can. Mom was like, no, you don't hit little boys neither. But I said, but you see, we view it as different. Just as society views a little boy hitting a little girl or a man hitting a woman as different, society views what comes out of a young lady's mouth different than what comes out of a young man's mouth. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but it's the reality of what is. And it's a scriptural principle. It says, abstain from the appearance of evil. And for a young woman, abstaining from the appearance of evil, my wife could punch me in the eye and nobody would care. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I'm saying as a law enforcement officer. Because honestly, she might black my eye. A buddy of mine, him and his wife got in a fight, and he came to work. I was actually just training with him the other day. He's going back to the agency to do some stuff, but we're at in the SEAL teams, and he come to work with a little bit of a black eye and a little cut right here. And we're like, what happened to you? He said, bro, me and my wife got in a fight, and he said, I said something. He said, she just punched me in the eye. I just started laughing, and it was funny. Right? We laugh at that. But if he had punched her, if he had hit her, he probably would have broke her orbital. I mean, he could have actually. I mean, there's a good chance that he
probably would have walked off the team too.
Oh no, not off the team. He'd been in jail. There'd been a whole process. But what I'm saying is, there's a level of difference because he can actually physically hurt her really bad. I don't care who the chick is out there. There are very few chicks. You might have a few that like are fight trained or whatever, but most chicks hit a dude. Yeah, you might hurt me a little bit, but you need an object to be an equalizer. Yeah. Most dudes hit a chick, you're gonna hurt them really bad. So I say all that to say it is different, and it's viewed differently for that reason. We view a guy that hits a girl is extremely bad, and a girl that hits a guy we don't think much of. We don't think much about. You view a guy that has a bad mouth, we might be like, I don't like hanging around that guy because all he does is talk bad all the time. I don't think he's a Christian. But think of the girls that you know that have a filthy mouth. You view them differently. And so that's one thing that I try to teach my daughters. That's one thing I learned from the SEAL teams, and trying to flip that switch on and off is there still is a difference. regardless of how our society wants to blur the lines. There's a difference in how we view it. There's a difference in how people view it. And it's important to understand and uphold that difference.
And stepping back in the house, though, I mean, the decompression piece is good.
Yeah.
That was the place where, like you said, you can be yourself around your wife more than you can anywhere else.
And it's
and
that never was hard for me, though. That was never it was for some guys,
not me
but
either.
not for
But
me.
it was great. It was wonderful to walk back in and go, ugh.
Oh yeah. That's what it was. It was a relief. I mean, it was almost
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But I do recall one time I'd been back from one of the deployments, not long, and we're late for church. And my daughter, who I think is 10 at the time, and we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, closing in on the end of hour number 2. I'm still in the home fries segment right now. I got stuff right here on Mississippi. I'm on Tennessee, on Alabama. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of talk about Memphis. I'll get to that here momentarily. I will say this, though, JP, with regards to your dig at me earlier. It says, JP, Phil goes to AL.com, so I don't have to. David from Buc-ee's.
That's a good point. Yes.
Thank you, David at Buc-ee's. Thank you very much. Adam from Athens says, sounds like a podcast with Pastor Jim is coming soon. Yeah, it's Bishop Jim Lowe is his title, and I think that's a given. That would be he's just a wonderful, wonderful man too. He's one of those guys too. He has like a calming personality. He can say something. He can tell you the room's on fire, and you want to go, oh, because of the way he says it. I don't know how to describe it, but really, really just a great guy. So I'm in this home fries segment. I will tell you this: there are 2 major mayoral elections, and it's it coming up right now. City of Guntersville, which is a big deal. I mean, that's where. It seems like a small town, but it's a hub town. It's one of those like that. So much of it surrounds it. It regionally impacts the area, and that is where both Attorney General Steve Marshall and Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth are from. And the Alabama Democratic Party. This article I got on 1819 News came out today. Says, running without the party label stigma, Alabama Democrats line up behind their Mobile and Guntersville mayoral candidates. So there's very few right now that are running in elections that are going to be on the ballot like now for a mayor's race. One is Mobile, which is huge. That's a big deal. Second largest city in the state. And so down in Mobile, you've got State Representative Barbara Drummond, who has been a longtime liberal Democrat, long time. Running against a guy named Spiro Chiriagatis, who's a Republican. And then up in Guntersville, you got a guy named Jeff McLaughlin, who's a longtime Democrat. I mean, like, was in the state house forever as a Democrat. And they are now running, and they don't want to talk about their party affiliations. Well, this is a political race. Come on.
Convenient.
Yeah. Be who you are. Thank you. Thank you very much. But yeah, Drummond has been in the House as a Democrat since 2014. And her voting record has stayed real close, like a party lines the entire time. She actually voted against naming the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America. And she's also had a bill. She's against a bill that prohibits gender identity or sexual discussion in schools. All these things are on her record. And she does not want to talk about her Democrat Party affiliation. Why? Because Democrats lose. That's why. The other guy, Jeff McLaughlin, I mean, like I said, for 136 straight years, the Democrats controlled the state house, and one of those members was Jeff McLaughlin, Democrat from Guntersville. And now, allegedly, he's trying hard to prove that he's really a Republican now. Okay. Now, granted, he may have been out, longer than the 6 years that our party bylaws say you have to be out. But my gosh, man, we know who you are.
It's funny, Alabama Democrats turn into Joe Biden when asked what political party they're part of. It's like, oh, you got some parties on the left, some on the right. Who knows? Who cares? It's, yeah. Where am I? What? Where am I right now?
That was a really good impression, by the way.
I
Have you been
did was
practicing
about-
that?
No. I had to listen to it for 4 years. I'm ashamed that I know how to do that.
Wow. I mean, the only thing I did here was corn pop. Can you talk about corn pop for a minute?
Corn Pop, he's some say he's on the right, some say he's on the left, but he's a good guy. Corn Pop.
Corn pop.
Beat you up behind the high school.
Carried a chain.
Yeah.
It's a
real
bad
tough
dude.
guy.
Carried a chain. All the kids in the pool won't touch the hairs on my leg.
Oh gosh.
God, that guy was a gift that kept on giving, wasn't he?
Turn blonde in the summertime.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Listen, let's move on in home fries and talk about something else because right now what we're wondering about is how is Trump going to address crime in major cities in the Southeast? So we have had a situation right now where Birmingham is one of the murder capitals of the United States. But I tell you what's worse, Memphis. So all y'all in our Tennessee audience and all y'all that just care about crime in general and all y'all, oh, by the way, that love Memphis, listen, Memphis needs help. They just do. So what's going to happen right now? Trump has made it very clear he wants to clean up some of America's crime-ridden cities. He believes that if the state and locals will not do it, that perhaps his role as president, as commander-in-chief, gives him authority to do it. Now, in Washington, D.C., it has worked. Now, Washington, D.C., he had the law on his side. So the Home Rule Act of 1973 gave the president the authority to step in as needed. Can he do that in other places? Well, he proved that he can successfully in California with the riots when he sent the National Guard out there to help quell the riots because local would not do it. And California itself, the state, would not call up its National Guard. So Trump did. It became a matter of, major legal contention as the state actually resisted, even legally trying to get the Trump administration to be refuted by the courts. Why? Because apparently they want the crime to continue. As long as Trump's the one in charge, crime is better than having Trump get involved. That's where they are right now. Liberals right now hate Trump more than they love America. And that needs to be something you write down and burn into your memory. Liberals right now hate Trump more than they love America. And they are willing to let the house burn down than to have the opportunity for Trump to say, see, I helped. I did a good thing. I was there for you. They can't have that. So yes, the fact is we're looking at right now some intervention in Memphis. When we get back to this break, I'll tell you all about it. But Memphis, by the way, is fighting it. Memphis does not want it. You think that the resistance we saw out of Chicago was something? Memphis, holy cow. They even admit they have a problem and still don't want help. That's how bad it is. Coming up, home fries, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Bathroom. And I go up to the door and she's in the bathroom. And I called her Tootie when she was little. I said, Tootie, pinch it off. We have to go. And my wife leans down the hall and goes, did you just tell your sweet little girl to pinch it off? And I went, I did.
Yeah.
So I had to retool some of my, to recalibrate some of my lexicon.
What you say, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. And I'm gonna switch gears here a little bit. Would you? Because I see the things that are in your life. I see the way you talk about your family. I see the way you talk about your faith. Obviously, I can imagine. I mean, my training was a lot different than yours, but I can imagine the dedication and the resilience it took to do the things you did militarily, combat deployments, what you're doing now with your businesses, which I'll get into in a minute. You consider yourself to be a mission-minded person?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, and I think that might just be a thing that men have maybe more so than, let's say, women. Women, and I've learned a lot about women because I have a wife and 3 girls. I'm around them now, so they're very relational. They're very relational, and we have a HR person that works for us. I've known her for a long time at Covenant Rescue Group. She's kind of our office manager in HR. Unbelievably relational. That's why we hired a female for that role. And men are not. And I would say one step further, yeah, I already have that more of mission mindset or complete the job mindset or whatever you want to call it. I would take it one step further with me. I do cherish relationships I have and friendships I have, but at the same time, the mission supersedes the man sort of thing. That's kind of I definitely lean more to that than I do relationally, which is why I think God gave me 3 girls, is he's teaching me how to how to probably balance the relationship and the mission a little bit better than I have in the past.
All right, so
that's a long-winded answer.
No, it's a good answer. But let me take it a step further. So mission-minded. I mean, like for instance, me, radio, podcasting, practicing law. Those are things that I do, but I feel like I've got a calling that makes those things possible. So in the mission-minded kind of theme of this discussion, how would you take all the things that you do and say, I do them because my calling is?
Well, it's ultimately to present Christ to everybody we come in contact with. That's what I believe. The eternal is far more important than the things that are not eternal. And what is eternal? The only thing that's eternal is who we are in Jesus, right? And so I do believe every aspect of my life, whatever it is, wherever I find myself, I'm going to work as hard as I can so people say, wow, you know what, that guy's, his actions show something different about him, right? But that's not good enough. I have to let them know what the different thing is, and that is Jesus. That's why I generally share the gospel, anywhere we go. Anybody you ask that's worked with us. I had a guy from a church call and say, hey, so how does CRG share the gospel? We're not a Christian-based nonprofit. We're just a normal 501c3. I just happen to be a Christian who's the CEO of a nonprofit, and we have a bunch of Christians that work for us, and we'll share the gospel. Say, hey, guys, look, we're not a Christian-based nonprofit, but this is what we believe. If you need prayer, if you need anything, we do that with law enforcement agencies. So that is the mission. Here's the importance behind it, and Jesus does this perfectly. I do not. You're asking, I use the mission versus relational, mindset, and this is a good segue into it. Jesus succeeded in fulfilling the mission that relationally a lot of people didn't want him to do. That was to go down on a cross. So he succeeded in fulfilling the mission. Obedience to the Father, obedience to the point of death. Job 13:15, though he slay me, I will trust him. But he did it for the relationship with mankind. It was the perfect mix of the mission and the relationship. And that should be who we are. So the mission is, as a Christian, share Christ with everybody, because that is the only perfect mix of mission-mindedness and relational mindedness, the relationship mindedness. Now, my wife and my girls, unbelievably relationally minded. We'll let the house burn down around us, but if we can go on vacation as a family, then that's what we're going to do. And it's like, well, okay, we can't do that every other week. We're not billionaires that can go and do all this. But let me tell you what, they'll do that. And every one of my buddies say their wives are the same way, right? When can we go do this with the kids? It's just, and the movie that I like to use an example. Have you ever seen Old School? You know the movie Old School?
Oh, yeah.
So Vince Vaughn is in there. He's like, you sure you want to do this, bro? They're up on stage to get married. She's like, yeah, what are you talking about? Be quiet. And he goes, no, you sure you want to do this? I mean, look at her. There's my wife down there. She's holding the baby. Look, she's just sitting there watching, judging, look at the baby. As a unmarried guy, I never got that part. I mean, I always thought it was funny the way Vince Vaughn talks, just watching me, judging me, look at the baby. Now that I'm married, 100% get it, because that's it all the time, and because the family relationship is what they are so in tune with.
Oh, yeah. So we're grandparents now, by the way.
So even more so.
And my wife's grandmom name is Sweetie, which is a perfect fit.
What's your grandpa name?
Cap.
Cap?
I'm Cap.
All right.
Cap
all
and
right.
Sweetie. But Sweetie told me yesterday, if we don't get down to see the grandbaby sometime soon, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's like, hey.
And I want to see them too. But for her, it is way beyond anything I could ever put my finger on.
But for you, it's your work. It's this mission. And it might be sharing the gospel, and you have to find that perfect mix of it. And that's why I bring that up, is because the mission mindedness that I have, it would go too far one way, and I would work all the time. The relational mindedness that my wife has, it would go too far the other way, and we wouldn't have a dime to spare because we'd be vacationing down at the beach condo every other weekend, right? And so you have to bring those two things together, and the only way they're brought together, and you mentioned it, what is the point of the mission? Sharing the gospel, because that's the only thing that helps these two things correlate or coalesce appropriately.
Awesome. Let me jump into your team time a little bit. I want to hear about it just for a few. And time in the teams. Let me ask you first of all, why Navy? I mean, was that like the lifelong?
No.
I'm going to be a Navy SEAL.
No. I actually want to be an Army Ranger. That's how about that,
Hey.
right? Yeah. So or a Marine sniper. Saw that movie with Tom Berenger. Remember that movie, Sniper, with Tom Berenger? I always wanted to be a sniper, Marine sniper, and then after seeing Black Hawk Down, I was like, I want to go be an Army Ranger.
Nice.
My dad took me down to recruiting office, and I was like, Dad, I'd become a firefighter. I was 18 at the time. I turned 19 before I actually went into the Navy. I said, hey, Dad, I think I need to do this. Dad just said, hey, if you're going to do something, not that military service is not special, but do something different. If you're going to go get a degree, get a master's degree. Go the whole route. If you're going to go to the military, do something special, do special operations. And Bush had just done the contract. You go Ranger, X-ray for the Green Beret, SEAL contract, PJ. So it was the
conservative and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3 on a Meatloaf Monday. Oh, yeah. Hey, by the way, I got to say, that's how timely this show is. I just a moment ago, right before the break, started talking about Memphis crime. Trump's going to get involved, and I'm going to outline it for you. And then I look up on the screen, and lo and behold, live right now in the Oval Office is President Trump with Attorney General Pam Bondi, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's running for governor of Tennessee, Congressman Bill Hagerty, and SecDef Hegseth, and a whole crew of folks talking about Memphis crime, and the president apparently today signing a memorandum, maybe an executive order, I don't know, on the issue of forming a joint task force to deal with crime in Memphis. That's amazing. That's timely. That's Rightside Radio. How about that?
I guess I listened to the show.
I feel like every night I go home, watch the news, and I see how many people just took things straight off of our dippers. Just saying. Okay, listen, I'm going to go to the phones right now because she held on during the break, and I want to honor her time. My friend Allie from Athens, how are you doing?
I am doing well, and I am just so glad to be able to be talking to you on this most remarkable day in our country. I don't think I'm going to get through this conversation dry-eyed because of having a state of grief as well as tremendous expectation, and it's a strange set of emotions to experience. But I wanted to underscore some of the things about the 16th Street bombing that affected me. That was my first exposure to anything like that. And I was 9 years old, almost 10 when it happened.
Wow.
And one of the girls was in the 5th grade. I was in the 5th grade. And I was thinking, what in the world? Why would somebody want to kill kids going to church? Well, the wheels began to come off of our culture and our nation. And, a few weeks later, JFK was assassinated. And then as a kid, I experienced the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, and then the horrific evil of the Mansons, and then came Jesus people.
Yeah.
And that was when I got saved. So what I'm circling back to, at the risk of sounding like Jen Psaki, we had moving at that time. I don't think people really understood the spiritual warfare that the state of Alabama was experiencing. So when we got here 25 years ago, that was when they tried the remaining people that were still alive who were guilty of the bombing. I had a chance to go to a spiritual warfare prayer meeting in Birmingham prior to the trial, where there were Black people and white people and males and females all praying that justice would be served. And spontaneously, there were 4 white men that were there who chose to wash the feet of 4 Black women who had been associated with friends, family members, etc., of the 16th Street Church bombing.
Wow.
So when the trial actually rolled around, voir dire was done in less than a day, and the entire trial was wrapped up by Friday. And what happened was people like Fred Shuttlesworth came in and sat and prayed. People came in from all over America to sit in the room and pray that justice would be served. And it was. And in my own experience, I stood literally maybe 3 feet away from Thomas Blanton, who had been found guilty. And I looked into the eyes of that man, and I I saw a man who had spent a lifetime in guilt, still needed to be held accountable. Absolutely, justice needed to be served. But I have a feeling that the things that he suffered as a result of this stupid thing that he did were probably worse than anything anybody could have done to him as far as punishment is concerned. So here's my point, Phil. We live in Alabama where the state and the culture has had the courage to be transparent about our wrongs from the past
Yeah.
and to do something about it. And I believe that God is going to bless us as a result of that. And I think we're going to see kids be moving in revival as a result of what happened with Charlie, and it's going to blow our socks off.
Well, that's amazing stuff. Thank you for that. And let me ask you a quick question, just factually. I had forgotten that some of the trials for the 16th Street bombing were so many years after the event itself. Why? I don't recall the circumstances. Why was it that the trial of the 16th Street bombers or some of the co-conspirators was so late in the game? Do you recall?
Well, I think I'm saying this strictly from the standpoint of conjecture, largely, but it was kind of along the same lines of what happened in the film The Ghost of Mississippi. It just wasn't addressed. It was swept under the rug, and we had all the craziness in Kelly Ingram Park, and the dogs and the hoses and everything that happened in Alabama was made to look like the armpit of the nation when it came to this, but it just wasn't addressed. My personal belief is that God finally said, it's time, we're dealing with this, we're getting it straight so that we can do the next good thing.
Wow. Very cool. It's amazing. By the way, I know that every state has their piece of the story, but it's amazing how much history has come out of this one state. How much impactful history, not just things that have happened, but how much impactful history has come out of Alabama. And I think it's almost like, people don't even realize to the extent that Alabama has played into significant moments in our history for its entire time. Love you, my friend. Thank you so much for that. That was good stuff.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
See ya. I got to look that back up and remind myself. Maybe you can look it up real quick if you want to. Thomas Blanton bomber. Why was the trial so late? Was there new evidence? I can't recall if there was new evidence that found him, or if there was a confession, or if he finally came forward and said, "I just want to know." What do you see?
It says that Thomas Blanton's trial for his role in the 1963 16th Street bombing was delayed for nearly 40 years, primarily due to interference by the FBI under its former director, J. Edgar Hoover.
Wow.
It says FBI blockage. Although Blanton was identified as a suspect within weeks of the bombing, Hoover blocked the Birmingham FBI's office's attempt to prosecute him and other Klansmen. Hoover reportedly believed a successful prosecution against the Klansmen was unlikely, and he did not want to share evidence with local authorities.
Wow. Just the opposite of what we're seeing right now with Kash Patel doing everything he can to give the locals what they need.
Yeah.
And being really transparent about it. Yeah, that kind of turf war crap just gets people killed, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so listen, we're going to take a break here momentarily. When I get back from this break, we're going to continue on with Home Fries, wrap up the thing on Memphis, see if we can find for you any sound clips, because literally the Trump presser right now in the Oval Office is still going. And right now it appears he's taking questions about the Charlie Kirk assassination. So I'm going to see if we can find a sound clip about what he's saying about Memphis. In the meantime, y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
Contract.
Call them SS babies.
Yeah, so when you're trying to up that number, so you don't have guys in the regular military going over there just trying to get anybody they can, get the top candidates. So I went and did that, and the hardest test, it was actually SEAL, Air Force for the PJ and the combat controllers. Then it was the Army for the X-ray, and then Ranger contract, or I think now it's called RASP, if I remember right, to actually go to battalion. And then finally was the Marine Corps had an 0311, 0311, their infantry contract, where you could go to screened for MARSOC after, I think, 1 year in the infantry. So somebody's probably listening. They could tell me where I'm wrong.
Were the Raiders standing up by then?
Yeah, they were.
Raiders?
They had just, I think it was 2005 that they had started standing the MARSOC Raiders up out of Force Recon. Not Recon. Everybody's like, oh, Marine Recon. Recon is a regular infantry, battalion that do some, different things. But I'm talking about Force Recon, their Special Operations Command. You get a contract for any of those. And SEAL was the hardest. So I just said, all right, Lord, I'll do the SEAL, and if I pass that test, because I had to swim, the run was a little bit harder, had to do more pull-ups.
Were you a big swimmer before you got there?
No, not at all. I could.
Really?
I mean, I could swim. I wasn't going to drown if I fell in the lake, but I wasn't a swimmer. I didn't.
You weren't drown-proof to that point.
I was not drown-proof, and so I said, if I can pass this thing, then that's the route I'll go. And it was physical, and then the written test. You had to score so high on your ASVAB, which is easy, and I did that, and I passed it, and I said, all right, Lord, I guess this is the route you want me to go. I got a contract. And, when I got the contract, I started training for 6 to 8 months, had nobody, didn't know any SEALs, didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do. So I just kept running. I would run a lot. I knew it was a lot of running. I was running probably 16 miles 2 times a week. And then in the other times I was running shorter distances, 3 and 4 miles every day a week, just training. Pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, doing that. My dad said, hey, you don't have to work. If you're going to go do this, good job, son. Live at my house, eat my food, and train and be ready. And then I'd go up to my buddy's lake house, and I would tread water with a boat anchor. I couldn't tread water with a boat anchor initially, but I got to where I could tread water with his boat anchor. Those little John boat anchors. There's not much weight, probably 15 pounds or something, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, but.
And I would let it down with a rope, and I would tread water. As I'd pull that 20-foot rope up, I'd let it down to the bottom under his pier, and I'd pull it up. I'd hold it over my head and tread, and then I'd let it back down, and that's what I would do. You can see he's over here laughing because I'm sitting here kicking my little feet like I'm doing it, right? And I would do that to train, and then a buddy of mine had a pool, and I would go swim in their pool every day of the week. I just swim laps back and forth.
How long was this self-training going on before you went down?
6 months, so it's probably about 6 months.
So what's
maybe a little bit longer.
I don't know the answer to this. What's the pipeline? So you took a SEAL contract, obviously.
Well, it's changed. It's changed a little bit now. So I'll tell you my pipeline because the pipeline shifts about it seems like it shifts every 2 years. I got a contract. I get slated for a time in the Navy, and then I have to pass the test to maintain the contract throughout the duration. So you go to MEPS just like anybody else does, went down to Montgomery, signed on, all that stuff. And 6 months, it might have been a little bit longer than 6 months, but they slate you for a time to leave for boot camp. So you don't leave immediately.
Delayed entry.
Yeah, so it's and it wasn't by choice either. It was just, hey, this is the time that we have for you to leave. And so I'm going through that process, and I have to continue to check into the NOSC or the little Navy area down there, go and check in. I do my screener, make sure I maintain that contract, and went to the Navy and went through boot camp. When you're done with boot camp, it's like 3 months long or 3.5 months, whatever it is. Go through boot camp. In boot camp, you have extra, because I had a contract for NSW, you have an extra training in the morning. So
Naval Special Warfare, for those who don't know.
Yeah. So you go NSW guys had to go and train early in the morning, swim and run and all that stuff at boot camp. So we got up earlier. Everybody gets up at 5, let's say, or whatever time it was. We get up at 3:30 or 4, go over, do an hour of training, come back. Everybody's up at 5, making their beds, getting ready for the day for your inspection, normal boot camp. So we had extra stuff at boot camp to keep us ready, albeit it didn't work that well. I got in worse shape in boot camp than I was when I got to boot camp. And once you're done with that, they had something called scruff duty. That's gone now, but scruff duty is where they hold you, and then they take guys, and whoever's the top screeners get sent out to BUDS to class up in BUDS in San Diego. And this is in Chicago, Great Lakes, Illinois, where the Navy boot camp is. So after boot camp, went to scruff duty. I got picked up in the first rotation, and they send us out to San Diego, and there you check in, and you don't check into a class yet, because then they take the top screeners and they put them in the next class to sign, for BUDS indoc. It's not called indoctrination anymore, but at the time I was there, it was called indoctrination. And that's basically a couple weeks of prep for BUDS first phase, and you lose a lot of guys during that time. So that's the process.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. So I'm in this section of home fries here. Going to cook up a batch of home fries. Cook them up, man. Hit me some cook. Oh, yeah. Cook them up. You smell them. By the way, Joe in Tennessee says, make Memphis great again. Make Memphis great again.
I agree. Long are the days when Elvis was there and it was, you know.
What do we say, though? Is that Mga? Mga.
That's also MAGA. Oh, wait, make Memphis, sorry.
Make Memphis great.
Yeah,
Yep.
Mga, yeah.
So President Trump just had a presser. He's actually still in it right now. It's live. Believe it or not, CNN is also covering it live. That's amazing. I've got
They're probably calling him a racist while doing it, so don't give him too much credit.
Yeah, probably are. I got a piece here from JP, AL.com.
I knew it.
I hold it in my callous former paratrooper hands. Phil, did you go to AL.com? I did. I go to these places so you don't have to. But it asks the question, after Memphis, will Trump send National Guard troops to Alabama cities? What Ivy has to say. Governor Kay Ivey. All right, so the bottom line is the question AL.com poses is, what about Alabama, particularly Birmingham, Montgomery? Two cities with violent crime has been a dominant issue. Any chance they're on the president's list? The governor's office says they have been given no indications that those cities are on the president's list. And they say that we'll continue fighting crime with a hard stance. Okay. I will say this. There has been a successful program in Montgomery called MAX, the Metro Area Crime Suppression Unit. MAX. They launched it last year. And this is a collaborative effort between the Attorney General's office, state law enforcement, local law enforcement, and it's actually had apparently a pretty solid impact. Birmingham has resisted the idea of doing this. Pray tell. I think it's time. I think it's absolutely time for Birmingham to be addressed. Now, last week, I think it was, Caroline Leavitt from the White House did actually call out Birmingham as an example of a Democrat-run city in a red state with crime rates are based on disastrous policies. So they know about it. It's on their radar. But right now, there's no indication that Birmingham is going to see a Trump National Guard movement. However, Memphis. So right now, I got a couple pieces here. One from Breitbart, one from the AP. AP points out that Trump is talking about Memphis, calling the city deeply troubled, saying we're going to fix it like we did Washington. Tennessee's Republican governor has embraced it. That's Bill Lee right now. Marsha Blackburn, who's running for governor, is embracing it. It is absolutely something that they are talking about doing. But the mayor of Memphis, not so much. The mayor of Memphis says, I didn't ask for the National Guard. I don't think it's the way to drive down crime. Well, of course he doesn't. You know why? Because it's his policies. He doesn't want to deal with the fact that his policies will be on the hot seat.
Well, I mean, clearly what she thinks is the best way to drive down crime is working, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
I love when people like the mayors of these cities, they say, well, that's not the way to do it. It's like, oh, well what you've been doing has been working great, I guess.
Absolutely.
Unless we wouldn't feel the need to send the National Guard down.
Although I will say this, to your point, it's amazing to me how many cities get called out like this and suddenly find stats that say their crime rate's going down, actually. Yeah. It's going down.
Well, on this date in 2023, it went down 0.5%. Ha, see? It doesn't need to have National Guard.
The AP says the president's announcement came just days after Memphis police reported decreases across every major crime category in the first 8 months of 2025. It's getting better. Don't come here. They're still one of the murder capitals of the world. The world. Y'all. Memphis. That's our Memphis. The world. So one more thing before I play a soundbite that we've got. Memphis mayor was on MSNBC. Go figure. MSNBC just a couple of days ago. He flat out admitted, in fact, one of his responses to a long question about how bad it is to send National Guard into cities was, we do have a deficit of about 300 to 500 officers. They're down 300 to 500 officers that we need. He says we have a deficit of about 300 to 500 officers that we need. And while they won't be serving in a law enforcement capacity, there may be things that the National Guard could do on major events and help coordinate traffic. They're not coming in for traffic patrol. They're coming in because you are short 300 to 500 officers. But then he went on to say he still doesn't want the National Guard there. He's short 300 to 500 officers, has one of the capital murder cities of the world. And oh, by the way, doesn't want the National Guard. Do we have time for this clip right now? I've got a clip. This is fresh. Y'all, this is what Rightside Radio just does. The president said these things we're about to play for you about 20 minutes ago. And we already got the sound bite because JP's who he is. Go ahead and play it.
This team will deploy the full powers of federal law enforcement agencies and enforcement generally to restore public safety and get dangerous career criminals off of our streets. We're going to get them off. In 2024, Memphis had the highest violent crime rate, the highest property crime rate, and the third highest murder rate of any city in the nation. Other than that, they're doing quite well, thank you. A person is 4 times more likely to be murdered in Memphis, Tennessee today than in Mexico City. It's been, and you know Mexico City is not a cakewalk. It's been overrun with carjackings, robberies, shootings, and killings. There were 249 murders, 429 rapes, 5,616 burglaries, and 12,522 violent assaults in just the last little while in 2024 and in pieces of 2025, where it's actually gotten worse until recently when we sent the FBI down to see what the hell is going on. Last month, a vicious thug carjacked an elderly woman parked at the movie theater, dragged her out of the car, and body slammed her into the pavement, where she is still trying to recover. Probably won't be successful. So we're not going to allow this kind of savagery to destroy our society anymore. We're stopping it. We're doing it one by one.
So, yeah, the president's taking action. To the extent I don't know, but I do know this, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was in the room for that. So you had the Attorney General, the SecDef, actually, I'm sorry, Secretary of War.
Yeah, get it right. The Sec War.
I'm sorry. I'm going to call it Gulf of Mexico for too long, too, and not be wrong there, too. The Secretary of War, the Attorney General, the Senator and Congressman for that area, the Governor, and then several other cabinet members, including the Secretary of the Army, if I'm not mistaken, were all in the Oval Office. So that tells you you're about to see the full on. Oh, and Secretary Noam is also there, too, from Department of Homeland Security.
Kash Patel was there as well.
Was Kash was there, too?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, the end result is this is going to be a full court press, and Memphis better go ahead and just strap it on and say, all right, they're coming. What are you going to do? And so I'm curious to see whether in a red state, whether or not the Attorney General is a Republican. I doubt the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee is going to wind up suing the Trump administration. The question I have is, will the city of Memphis try to do it on their own? And I think they're going to have a hard road to hoe, because the only thing that they've got to deal with here is you have a crime rate that's out of control. You're 300 to 500 officers down by your own mayor's, admission. And the Trump administration is saying, we'll give you help. Just the other day, David Axelrod, a longtime Democrat strategist, said, we're foolish not to accept the help. In fact, what you ought to do is say, thank you, Mr. President. We got good things going on, but if you could send somebody else, we'll take it. You will be a hero, Democrats, but they can't do it. You know why? Like I said earlier, Democrats, by and large, hate Trump more than they love America, and that's a problem. I think we're about to see something going on in Memphis. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
San Diego, I classed up with Class 264 and with NDOC, made it through NDOC, made it into first phase, and it's constantly a selection process. So out of the Southeast, they took, out of a couple hundred guys that screened, 10 of us actually wound up going to BUD/S and maintaining that contract. And then when you get into scruff duty, there's a couple hundred guys there. There might have been 300 guys at scruff duty. Well, they took 50 of those guys that were the top screeners and sent them out to San Diego. So I was in that first run, and a lot of my buddies were. We sent them out to San Diego. And in San Diego, you might have a couple hundred guys waiting to class up, and they'll take however many of those guys to fill that next class. So they're always selecting, taking the top performers because, again, they're trying to get more numbers through. The percentage still stayed the same as failure rate, but they're just trying to get more numbers into the teams. And So I classed up with 264, 366 guys with Bud's Indoc. And by the time we graduated Bud's, I think only 11 originals graduated. And the of the 11 originals that graduated, of 32 guys that I started with actually got tridents. I was one of those guys. I didn't graduate until class 267. So you get rolled for injury, performance, maybe both. I got rolled, and in 267 is when I actually graduated Bud's and SQT.
Yeah, we call that recycle in the Army.
Yeah, that's it. You're just getting recycled, but you only get one shot to recycle, and they might hold you 2 or 3 classes for your injury to heal, or whatever it is, but they'll throw you back into a class, and you have certain staples. So Hell Week is one. If you make it through Hell Week, you don't have to go through Hell Week again. If you make it through pool competency in the second phase, you don't have to go through pool comp again. If you make it, and then third phase, you'll have to start over.
Are there ancillary? I mean, in the Army we call them special schools, like additional special schools. And I actually had some Rangers some SEALs in my Ranger class.
Yeah. So
did you go to airborne school? Did you go to? What else
so we go to jump school because we're all Hey-Ho qualified, all that. So, but we had our own jump school. Because the Army.
So you're not at Fort Benning going through jump school doing that?
No, the guys used to. But when they set the requirement that all SEALs be Hey-Ho qualified, we stood up our own jump school right there in San Diego at Brownfield, and we did all of our static line there. I've only got like 5 or 6 static line jumps, and then a couple hundred, free fall jumps. There's some guys that really get into it. They have thousands of free fall jumps, especially guys over at development group that jump a lot. Now we spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel and did a lot of that, but and we had a whole air ops thing that we stood up at Team 3 where we would jump in with stuff, and you can do advanced schools later, but a requirement to be a SEAL is to pass jump school, free fall school. And some guys wouldn't pass it. Some guys make it through Bud's and then they fail jump school.
That was one of the dreams I never got to go do.
Yeah. Free fall?
By the way, is that still considered a primary insertion technique for the teams? Is that?
No, I wouldn't say it's a primary insertion technique. There's some guys that have inserted into combat situations in Africa primarily via jumps, halo jumps or Hey-Ho jumps. The only ones I ever did was training, and so it wasn't really needed because we're at war in the country we were in, so we didn't have to jump in.
So all right, I see the pipeline. I see you got trained. Let me ask you this real quick before I move on to deployments. So Ranger School for me, I went and it was all about patrolling and small unit tactics and and mountaineering and whatever else and swamp operations, and which was miserable and all those things were they were real.
Where'd y'all do your swamp stuff at? Mississippi?
No, down in Florida.
Oh, in Florida? Okay.
Yeah, Eglin Air Force Base. But that being said, later I realized I think more than anything I learned things about me. Yeah. And I gained stuff that was not necessarily what I would call military. Yeah. It was more along the lines of things that it did to me, for me, and taught me about me. Yeah. What about you with Buds and the rest?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess the most concise way I can say it is, again, a scriptural principle. David says, "You knit me in my mother's womb." God made you who you were before you were even born. He knew you, he knit you, he put you on this world for a certain purpose. And the New Testament tells us so that he's placed every man in his time and his specific dwelling so that he might reach out and find God. So he placed us here to find him, to be able to see this is who God is, right? The Godhead, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So I do believe.
Radio, solid, conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all and talk about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Oh, by the way, that's just the radio when you take in all the North Georgia, Mississippi thrown into. Yeah. And then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world, going to the World Wide Web, places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. Live streaming the show. Live streaming. live streaming, looking right into the studio. And then, oh, by the way, there's all you podcasters. Yep, we can see it. We know the numbers. We're aware that you're there. The bottom line is this. I run down that list, that mantra, if you will, every time, because I want you guys to understand that, first of all, we see it, we know you're there, and no matter where you catch this show, it means the world to us that you do. So thank you very much, all y'all. Appreciate you. Bunch of Rightside ruffians. I got to tell you, I was about to leave Home Fries, and a story just broke. Holy cow. Story just broke on 1819 News, just posted. Right here in Alabama, a Montgomery Capitol Heights middle school teacher was just placed on administrative leave after posting a TikTok video mocking the death of conservative political organizer Charlie Kirk. Her name is Laura Ogan. She's a Capitol Heights middle school teacher. She posted on TikTok that she had told her daughter, "Down with the bigots." And then she went on, it got worse. She got on, she says, "We need this right now. We need this right now. As a community, we win." And then she said, something along the lines of, "I hope it was traumatic and I hope he suffered in the way that we're suffering because of bigoted blah, 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 blankety blank that he spoke." And again, down with the dirty big heads and the bigots. What an idiot. What an idiot. So she's on administrative leave. Good. And there will be those who say, it's her free speech right. That is not free speech, by the way. Oh, by the way, I would also challenge you to say why you would want this person teaching your small children. She's a middle school teacher. And she has such callous disregard for life that she is willing to celebrate that a crime took place against somebody she just doesn't like. I mean, I would dare say that she's never been hurt by Charlie Kirk. But she's just altogether just mentally bruised because he existed at all, because he had a differing opinion of, I guess, her lifestyle. I don't know what. All I know is this person has been in a place of responsibility over children in Alabama, red state Alabama. Now, granted, it's in blue dot Montgomery, but still, we got a copy of the statement being put out by the superintendent, Zacchaeus Bird. He said, "Out of an abundance of caution about the safety of the teacher and the school community, I'm placing the employee on administrative leave." Wait a minute. Hang on a second. He said, "I'll be recommending this teacher for termination." Okay, he did say that. Okay, all right. I thought he was about to say, we took her on administrative leave to protect the school. I guess what he's saying now is, yeah, she's out of there. She's gone. She needs to be. And I hope she has a come to Jesus moment, both mentally and spiritually.
And the free speech thing, you can't yell fire in a theater. Like, it's not we're not calling for these people to be arrested, but I think it's very fair for them to lose their job, especially if you're teaching kids like that. And on the right, people may have lost their jobs because they refuse to get vaccinated. That's their constitutional right. Openly mocking someone who got shot and kind of, in a way, encouraging more political violence, that's completely different sort of circumstance.
There was a story that I didn't even get to in my earlier segment. I had one in the Turning Point Aftermath piece. As I understand the story, because since I didn't get to it, I didn't go ahead and highlight the notes like I would normally. But my recollection of the story is this lady's a nurse. She was appalled because one of the doctors in her hospital was celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. Let's be clear, not the death, the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Assassination.
Yeah, the assassination, violent death. Anyway, this doctor was celebrating it. She reported him. Initially, she lost her job. They had a quick come around, and the hospital has now released a statement saying that doctor is no longer with us, and she will be working her shift tonight.
Nice.
And that's the way it should be.
Yes.
But yeah, it's an amazing thing to watch people celebrate murder and then feel justified because they believe something was said by the person who was murdered that makes it okay then to murder them. That's just what level of mental, spiritual, social disconnect do you have to have for that? And yet this person was teaching kids, or that doctor was taking care of patients. By the way, does the Hippocratic Oath apply? Does that mean if Charlie Kirk had been brought into his ER, he would not have cared for him? What does that even mean? And then you look at the pilot who lost his job with, I think, American Airlines. They dismissed a pilot for doing the same thing. And you got to realize, if this pilot is putting his own welfare and thoughts and opinions over those of his, passengers, what does that mean to the airline? Well, apparently it means a lot, because we're seeing people lose their job left and right now because they're idiots. They're absolutely asinine jackwagons who have no idea to have the ability of decorum and personal respect, and to also recognize that if we are going to be a nation of laws, you can't cheer murder. It doesn't work that way. Hoy. Okay. Chris from Rogersville checks in and says, we all have freedom of speech, but not freedom of consequences. Hey, you know what? Put that on a bumper sticker. Give him his applause. He might have won the text line for today. Give me some feedback, by the way. We're coming down to the end of the show. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We got a brand new texter in the text line. Glad you're there. Brent from Athens is brand new. He says, on the shooter in the video, when he jumped from the roof, where was the gun? All I saw was the backpack. What we understand is that he actually may have stuck it down his pants leg so he could walk away without it being seen. That's what we understand.
Yeah.
There was some talk about whether he broke it down. And granted, any gun can be broken down, and he did have a screwdriver with him. So maybe he actually did break it down. But my understanding was he at least had the barrel down his pants leg.
Yeah, he was seen like kind of limping through the neighborhood that he ran into afterwards. So either he like broke his leg from the fall, jumping from a foot or a story high, or he had the rifle down his leg. So
yeah, either way, he's apparently confessed to it, and he apparently even confessed on, was it Discord? I guess he was
Discord,
on. Yeah, which is a what would you call that? Is that a chat?
It's a gaming chat service.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I use Discord with my friends all the time. So it's not just like, I know Discord gets a bad rap because it's a place that these sickos, go to, but just know that it's not all sickos. It's a normal thing, but unfortunately, it does have some people like that in there. But I've seen that Discord is cooperating with the investigation. So,
hey, by the way, Mark from Decatur says you also do a great Obama impression. He said, "I laugh. I've not heard your Obama impression.
I'm not hearing enough encouragement from the brothers.
I have heard that.
Vote for Kamala Harris in this upcoming election. Yeah, I'm not hearing enough." I could probably do a little better if I wasn't so stuffed, but yeah.
That's awesome. Good deal. All right. So, yeah, we got one teacher in Alabama who is now apparently on administrative leave, and you know what? Rightfully so. Don't tell us you have the kids' best interest of hearts if you're going to crow. By the way, also not only that, but crowing that she was crowing to her middle school age daughter. So that quickly tells you this person has no idea the responsibility she bears by working with kids of that age. Just unreal. Unreal. Hey, by the way, I will tell you this before I go to the break. My latest op-ed came out today. 1819 usually gets it first, and then the rest will follow. It's usually in USA Today weekly. It's also going to be in regional and local newspapers around the region. But this one I called, and I used last Friday's monologue, a generational moment in time. I want to encourage you to check it out. And you can find it. JP, where's the best place? On our website, I guess?
Our newsletter has a link to it if you want to go check it out in there. It's up as an X article on your personal X. So that'd be the best place for them to find it.
Yeah, you can find me on X at Sinphil Williams. A generational moment in time. I talk about the shooting of Charlie Kirk, but I also, in doing so, talk about the fact that it's going to be, it's reasonable to have a time of grief and questioning and reflection in the wake of a major event like this. But eventually it gets down to the point of, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And I point out that in Ephesians 2:10, the Message translation of Ephesians 2:10 says, he creates each one of us by Christ Jesus to join him in the work that he does, the good work he has gotten ready for us to do, work that we had better be doing. There's going to be something out there. If this Charlie Kirk moment, if this event, if this murder has impacted you, like it actually got to your emotions, like you can remember where you were when you heard it, then what I'm saying is, then you just experienced what can be referred to as a generational moment in your time, something that galvanizes you to perhaps do things you might not otherwise have been willing to go get involved in. What's that going to be? So I'd encourage you to read the article. It just came out. It'll be national for too long, but you can get to it today just by going to my social media. And then JP mentioned the newsletter. Before I go to the break, I guess I ought to say then, if you've never gotten on our daily email blast newsletter, we have thousands of Rightside ruffians who get the Rightside report every day in their inbox. All you got to do, super easy, just on this text line we always use, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text one word, newsletter. That's all you got to do. It's one word, newsletter. Text that to that number, and you'll get an automatic response back telling you how to sign up for it. It's free. We don't sell the list to anybody else. You're not going to get spammed, nothing like that. We'll just literally send you daily updates on what Rightside has got going on, to include a link to my most recent piece that was written. All right, take me to the break, JP. Last break on a Meatloaf Monday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Of it, but he made you a certain way, right? He made you to find him, but he also made you a certain way to share him with the world around. I don't believe, what I've learned is I don't believe everybody's like, oh yeah, they trained you that way in BUD/S, or they trained you that way to be a SEAL. No, that's not what they're doing. Notice everything I've talked about is a selection process. It's a constant selection process. And even once you get there, once you get to a SEAL team, once you get to in an instructor role, once you get to, development group for the guys that go special mission unit, it's still a selection process for those individuals. Even once they make it there, you have to continually perform. And I would say that for me, that's what it taught me. They don't train you to do anything. I mean, they train you in some ways. They hone you, make you better. But the end goal, especially for BUD/S, is to find, is this the individual that we want to become a SEAL? Yeah. For sniper school, is this the individual that we want to become a sniper? I'm already a sniper, right? They just find me. I'm already a SEAL. They just find me. I'm already a Tier 1, a Special Mission Unit SEAL, a Development Group SEAL. They just find me. Does that make sense? And that's all of their processes that they're doing in every aspect. Then you get out of the SEAL teams. I'm already an operator, but the CIA finds me for the specific thing they want, or the DIA finds me for the specific thing that they want. They don't really teach you to become anything.
Who was it? Was it maybe Michelangelo who said that the art that he is sculpting is already in the stone? And
yeah.
I'm
he
super paraphrasing.
He just reveals it.
He just reveals it.
That's exactly
his job is to bring it out.
I would say that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that individual, wherever you're at, wherever you're at within your community or whatever, that individual is already there. For me in the SEAL teams, I was already a SEAL. They just found me. And there's not many guys. That's why we have such a high attrition rate, right? And then you go to the next step, like sniper school. That's why we have such a high attrition rate at sniper school. These guys are SEALs, but they're not a sniper. That's why you have such a high attrition rate in development group for the guys that go over SEAL Team 6. These guys are already SEALs. They're top-level operators. But we need something different for this. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of the flow. And that's probably what it taught me, is that everything is finding out, are you the person that can be this? Not training you to be the person to be that, which I find interesting because, again, it's a scriptural principle. Yeah. And oftentimes I think we find problems in this world. We either desire to be things that we weren't made to be. We shouldn't do that, right? It's the guy with the 1 talent, the 5 talents, and the 10 talents.
Well, boy's outside his gifts.
Yeah, that's right. If you're outside your gifts, you don't desire to be something that you weren't made to be.
Yeah.
And be the best thing that you can be. It doesn't matter if it's a dang garbage truck driver. My granddaddy, he's a farmer. He loves farming. He loves digging in the dirt. And I was at his house this morning, and that's what he was going over, showing me his plants that he built a little greenhouse for. It's a piece of plastic draped over some cross ties or some sawhorses with cross ties on top of it. Because plants were $4.99 now, and he wasn't about to do that. He can put one seed in a little bowl and have 80 plants for less than $12, right? So he's in his 80s, but that's the way God made him. Are you being what God made you to be, or are you trying to be something else? And that's what the SEAL teams finds out. It finds out the posers. It finds out the frauds.
It does. All right, so multiple deployments.
Yeah.
Some, I assume, non-combat, some combat.
Yeah, so I mean, all of our deployments would have been considered a combat deployment, but not every deployment, like what I mentioned to you, the checking into Team 3, not every deployment meant, even though it was a combat deployment for the team, meant that I was necessarily involved directly in combat.
Right. So how many and where?
So as far as the Navy is concerned, 3 sea service deployments, but my last deployment, because it was a year long, and even the one to Afghanistan was a year long, but I rotated in later than some of the other guys. We rotated in and out of 9 countries, and I'll name them all here in a second. We'll see if I get my number right. But you got the Iraqi, well, I mean Iraq, but what's it called?
OIF, Iraqi Freedom.
Yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom, OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom.
Right.
They call it all something different now,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, they
Everything's
do.
changed. Went to Jordan twice. Went to Bahrain twice. Went to Korea twice. Went to Yemen once. Ported in Oman, so I mean I got stamps for Oman, I guess. You could say I went to Oman. So maybe that's seven countries. Any of the others I've been to have been on contracts outside of the SEAL team. So I guess 7 countries during the time in the SEAL teams, rotating in and out. And then one of them was a cool mission. At the time, I was really upset about it because I wanted to be in Afghanistan with the boys, killing bad guys. It was actually a cool mission with SDV. Without talking too much about it, we were just protecting the SDV, running sniper ops.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Chris from Rogers, I already got that one. That was a good one. That was like a bumper sticker version. Several of y'all signed up for the newsletter just now, so thank you very much. Glad to have that. Yeah, if you want to get the newsletter, all you can do is type the word newsletter to 833-68-RIGHT, and you'll get an automatic response back that tells you how to sign up, and we'd love to get you on there. Dustin from Hillsborough says, for those crying injustice, would you rather lose your job for exercising your free speech or lose your life to a rifle for exercising your free speech like Charlie did? Point. We got another one who hasn't given us their name yet, but we want to know so we can plug you in. Said, in my opinion, if we conservatives were as hateful and violent as the left says we are, there'd be no blue states. Point. Last couple real quick, and then I'll go to the phones. Birch from New Hope says, these people were so confident that cancel culture only works one way. They truly believe nothing would happen to them. Yeah, isn't that something? That's amazing. You're right. Losing their jobs. Like, wait, what? There's consequences? Yes, there are. And then John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Phil gets an A+ for his magnificent performance, which means today's winner with an A+ is JP for his amazing home fry sound effect and for letting me take over first place in the football pick'ems. Congratulations.
Yeah, I had to go straight from the show to the airport Friday. I forgot to do my picks. So I gave John a freebie.
Oh, shoot. Well, and you also get extra points for being on cold medicine while you did the show.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, let me go to the phones. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm just breaking free of the gravitational pull of Nashville, and I'm entering light speed.
That's always got to be a good feeling when suddenly you get to go from like low gear to high gear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good to be in the high side for a change.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad you're moving quite well. What's on your mind, man? We talked a lot about the aftermath of Charlie Kirk. We talked about some home fry stuff and Memphis crime and all that. What's on your mind?
Well, you know, we have to. The blood of Charlie Kirk is laying at the feet of the Democrat, the Democrat, politicians and the left-wing media. I mean, they've stirred up the things that made all these people radicalized. You know, it's no different than somebody trying to radicalize Muslims. You know, and wanting them to go out and do things. The thing about it is. They need to be held accountable to some degree, I think, because if it's like bullying. If I bullied you and told you all these things, and you committed suicide, there is, I guess, people have been held accountable for causing people's deaths, civilly and criminally, I guess.
It's true,
So,
and it is absolutely true. And what's amazing to me is how often the left wants there to be no responsibility. They want to deny any level of responsibility, even though they would not stand for what they're doing themselves, were the roles reversed.
Yeah, it's kind of like the kid from Covington, and everything.
Yeah.
The only reason they went after him and told all the lies about him is because he had the MAGA hat on.
Yeah.
Never mind that the Native American went up to him. He was just standing there innocent. If he hadn't had that hat on, there would have never been anybody approach him or demonize or anything else. So it's like, if I sit there and say, Phil Williams is MAGA are child molesters. So he must be a child molester. How long would it be before I got a summons in the mail to go to court on that one?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, and rightfully so. But I don't know, man. I part of me wonders, will some of these people lose their jobs and sort of have that epiphany that, oh, I should not have said that, or how many of them will just turn into like perpetual victims? Because that's so often on the left, they just run with victimhood. It's all they've got.
And the trouble is, a lot of these people that have said things, they're protected by unions and things, and they won't lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And so that, especially like this teacher and everything, I kind of wonder how they're getting rid of her, because I'm figuring the teachers union will step in there and say, "Oh no, you can't do that. That's her opinion."
Well, they can try, and she can certainly bring that claim if she was tenured, but I'm pretty sure that social media post is going to be all it takes, especially in today's environment. There is getting to be a zero tolerance with that level of vitriol. And by the way, you also have to look at it and go, and you work with kids. Why should we trust you with? If you can't be trusted with kids, then you can't be a teacher.
By the way, why we talk about teachers unions? Weingarten put up a post. She had to delete it, mocking Charlie Kirk.
Did she really?
Yep. So
after his death,
mm-hmm.
God Almighty, and she won't lose her job either as the head of the teachers union.
Nope.
My gosh. There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, there's more to come, and I think we're going to see. I don't think we're through seeing people losing their jobs. I wonder too. There's been so many entertainers that are saying things like Stephen King, for one, had to backtrack. He's author and all these movies made of his books. I wonder how many people are going to wind up seeing their pocketbooks hit, like entertainers who people don't want to see their movies anymore or listen to their music anymore. I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah, it needs to be. Well, the ones on the right, we're not going to listen to it and everything. It's just about like this actress who won the Emmy Award last night, I guess. She's sitting there, F Ice and Free Palestine, and everything. And she's Jewish.
Yeah.
Jews for Hitler. I mean, what the heck? These people are so stupid. It's amazing.
They don't get it. And I wonder sometimes if the woke mind virus, if there's a cure. Well, I know the cure. The cure is Jesus. But the reality is these people, I mean, some of them just flat out need help. It has gotten to the point that Trump derangement syndrome is so real and so debilitating that people are not making good common sense decisions anymore.
Yeah. Well, you're not making a good decision if you're a Democrat to start with, I think, because your priorities are kind of messed up, I believe.
No doubt. All right, brother. Hey, listen, the music's about to play. You be safe on the road, and we will talk at you tomorrow. All right.
All right, Phil. Thank you. Have a good one.
See you, man. You too. Well, listen, this story is still unfolding, and I don't think we're at the end of it. I think there's going to be continued dialogue. There's going to be people that are going to, come on this show potentially, who are going to have personal experiences that are worth relating about their time with Charlie Kirk or about Charlie Kirk. And I think that's only fitting, because if we stop talking about it, they win. So yeah, we're going to continue on. The narrative is not done. In the meantime, I will tell you this, like I always tell you. Yeah, there's more of us than there are of them. Yeah, God is still on his throne. Yeah, stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.